Our story starts when Belle Crenelle is chased by a minotaur and saved by a beautiful girl with long golden hair. Covered in the minotaur's blood, Belle goes to meet Ina Tulla, his guild advisor, to learn about the girl who saved him, Ice Wallenstein. She scolds him for rushing into the dungeon carelessly, but then gives him some love advice. After their talk, Belle goes home and is greeted by his goddess, Hestia. She brought him fried potatoes, and they happily eat dinner together. Later, Hestia checks Belle's status and is surprised to see he has a new skill, Liaris Freeze. However, she decides to keep this secret from Belle. We start off with a secret. This will be fun.
Girls are pretty good at keeping secrets, Ken.
The next morning, Belle wakes up and sees Hestia sleeping right on top of her. He panics, his heart racing, and quickly jumps out of bed to get dressed for the dungeon. As he walks down the street, he can't shake the feeling that someone's watching him. He looks around, but there's nobody there. Just then, a girl calls out, saying he dropped a magic stone. Belle is sure he traded all his stones, but he thanks her anyway. The girl asks if he's an adventurer and how early he got into the dungeon. Suddenly, his stomach growls loudly. The girl smiles and offers him a lunchbox, but Belle shakes his head at first. She laughs and tells him not to worry about her food, saying she'll just grab some from the pub where she works. Then she asks him to promise he'll come back to the pub tonight in exchange for the lunchbox. At the dungeon, Belle keeps fighting monsters, and Ice's image appears in his mind. In the evening, he's shocked by his status update. Almost all of his stats have gone up a lot. He asks Hestia about it, but she gets angry and leaves him alone. Belle then goes to the hostess of Fertility Pub and is greeted by the girl he met earlier. She introduces herself as Sir Flova. The pub owner gives Belle a huge amount of food, and he's overwhelmed. While eating, another maid shouts that their reserved guests are arriving, the Loki Familia. Belle finally gets to see Ice again. The Loki Familia is having a blast, laughing and enjoying the night. But Bet Loga has had a little too much to drink. His mind drifts back to the Minotaur fight, remembering how Belle ran away while Ice stepped in to save him. Bet sneers at Belle, mocking him, saying someone as weak as him doesn't deserve a warrior like Ace. Hearing this, Belle can't take it anymore. His anger flares and he storms out of the pub, heading straight for the dungeon to fight and release his frustration. He doesn't come back until the next morning. Hestia is waiting outside their home, worried sick. When she sees him, she gasps. He's badly hurt. She rushes to him and Belle collapses in her arms, blood dripping from his face. With a pained look in his eyes, he whispers,
I want to be strong.
Hestia updates Belle's status and sees his fast growth due to his rare skill, Liaris Freeze. She wonders if she should tell him about the skill, but worried other gods might get interested, she decides to keep it a secret. Instead of giving Belle his paper, she tells him directly that he's growing at an incredible rate and has the talent to be an adventurer. She reassures him that he will become stronger and promises to support him, lending him her powers so he won't act rashly like before. She asks him not to leave her alone, and Belle promises he won't. After that, Hestia tells him she'll be gone for 3 days. Belle goes back to the hostess of Fertility and apologizes to Mia Grand for not paying the bill the night before. Mia forgives him, and Sir brings him another lunchbox. Mia reminds Belle to thank Sir since she defended him. She understands why Belle ran off the night before and gives him some encouraging words to lift his spirits and push him forward.
It's not manly stuff. You can't impress girls if you keep running like this, Belle. Grow up.
Thanks to Sir, she stood by his side, otherwise Belle was doomed. At the gods' banquet, Freya greets Hestia, who is busy trying to get as much free food as she can. Loki soon joins them, and Hestia asks if Ice Wallenstein is seeing someone. Loki quickly answers that she would tear apart anyone who tried to get A's. Freya comments on how rare it is to see Loki dressed up. Loki insults Hestia, saying she wore the dress to show off to the poor goddess. Hestia fires back, saying the dress only shows off her flat chest. The two argue by pinching each other's cheeks, and the other gods watch, betting on who will win. In the end, Loki leaves crying. Hephaestus arrives, and Hestia happily says she wants to meet her. Hephaestus quickly makes it clear she won't lend Hestia any more money, and reminds her of the time that Hestia freeloaded off her. Hestia says things have changed now that she has a Familia member. Hephaestus knows that Belle, the boy with white hair and red eyes, is Hestia's Familia member. After hearing that, Freya excuses herself, having confirmed something. After she leaves, Hestia begs Hephaestus to make a weapon for Belle. Looks like Loki lost the battle, but at least she didn't lose her sense of style, for now.
Hestia really knows how to work a crowd, even when she's just getting roasted.
That evening, Belle is standing in front of a weapon shop when Miak greets him, carrying a bag of supplies. Belle asks why Mike didn't go to the god's banquet. Mike says he was busy and gives Belle 2 potions for free. Belle thanks him, and they part ways. In Hephaestus' room, Hestia is prostrating in front of Hephaestus, begging her to make a weapon for Belle. Hephaestus finally agrees after hearing Hestia's reason. She agrees to make the weapon, but Hestia must pay her debt no matter how long it takes. Hestia is overjoyed, especially when Hephaestus says she'll make the weapon herself, and that Hestia will be helping. The next day, Belle casually walks down the street when Anya Fromel, the bubbly cat people girl from the hostess of Fertility, spots him and calls out. She asks him to deliver a wallet to Sir, but Belle is momentarily confused, not fully understanding the request. Before he can say say much, Ryu Lion, the composed and sharp-eyed elf, steps in. She gives Anya a pointed look, suggesting she should explain things more clearly. Anya, a bit flustered, quickly clears up the misunderstanding and fills in the details, making sure Belle understands what's needed. Meanwhile, in the forge, Hephaestus and Hestia are putting the to have been the finishing touches on a finely crafted knife. After some careful work, Hephaestus wraps it up neatly, tying it around Hestia's waist. With a nod, she urges her to deliver it to Belle. At a chic cafe, Loki and Freya sit together on the balcony, savoring their drinks as Ais stands silently behind Loki. Loki, always in a playful mood, glances at Freya with a mischievous smile and asks which boy from another familia has caught her eye. Freya, maintaining her cool, begins to describe the child, but her words trail off as her gaze shifts to Belle, who's walking by below. Her interest piqued, Freya excuses herself from the conversation. Ais too notices Belle, her eyes narrowing slightly as she watches him pass. Belle arrives at Monster Feria, searching for Seer, but instead he bumps into Hestia. Without giving him a chance to speak, she grabs his hand and pulls him away on a spontaneous date. The two enjoy some delicious crepes outside the Colosseum, laughing and having fun. But Hestia's mood shifts when she learns Belle was actually looking for another girl. A wave of jealousy hits her, but before she can say anything, a silverback monster suddenly appears from the Colosseum, roaring loudly. It's been ordered to hunt down Hestia, and with no time to waste, Belle and Hestia flee, running through the crowded streets. Did you see Freya's face when Belle walked by? Pure curiosity mixed with danger.
Yeah, but Hestia pulling Belle into a date like that? It's surely a very bold move. Guess she's got some serious competition now.
They race all the way to Daedalus Street, their hearts pounding. Belle, terrified but resolute, tries to protect Hestia by attacking the monster with his blade. But when the monster strikes back, his weapon shatters in an instant. With no way to stop it, they keep running for their lives. Realizing they can't escape together, Belle makes a heartbreaking decision. He forces Hestia into a hidden tunnel, telling her to go on without him. He promises her that he won't let anyone else he loves be taken from him, as he stands alone, ready to face the monster, vowing that he will not lose any family member anymore. Belle remembers the tragic day he learned that his grandfather had been killed instantly by a monster in the mountains. This devastating loss pushed him to become an adventurer, but every familia he approached turned him away. It wasn't until the goddess Hestia offered him a spot in her familia that he found a place where he truly belonged. Fast forward to the present, Belle locks Hestia in a tunnel, adamant that he won't lose any more family, and sets off to confront the silverback monster alone. Meanwhile, at the Monster Feria Colosseum, Ganesha is briefed on the monsters that have escaped by his subordinates. Determined not to handle this crisis with just his familia, he orders his subordinates to contact the other familias for help. Though they're hesitant, fearing the loss of face, Ganesha insists, stating that pride and merit mean nothing if the safety of the people is at risk. The subordinates reluctantly agree, and Ganesha orders them to keep the Monster Feria running smoothly and minimize the chaos. As they leave, Ganesha reflects on what might be behind the escape of the monsters. Back with Belle, the battle against the silverback takes a turn as his dagger shatters. As Hestia is fleeing through the tunnel, she trips and falls, but she quickly regains her composure. Remembering Hephaestus' advice about imbuing hieroglyphics into weapons, she adjusts the knife, forged by Hephaestus, and continues her desperate flight down the tunnel. Elsewhere, Misha informs Aina about the escaped monsters, and an emergency request is made to bring adventurers from any familia to assist, bypassing any allegiances. Ais and her goddess, Loki, overhear the conversation, and a sense of urgency builds. Back at the Silverback's confrontation, Belle continues to struggle, realizing that Ais probably won't show up to save him this time. But in a strange way, he doesn't mind. If she were to see him now, facing the same danger as before, it might just be what he needs to prove he's capable of standing on his own. After slaying a monster, the person turns to Aina and asks how many more are left. Aina tells him there are probably 3 or 4 left, so Ice takes off to hunt them down. With Ice gone, Misha compliments the Sword Princess, and Aina agrees, saying Belle's admiration for her is totally justified. But Aina can't help but worry about Belle too. Back with Belle, he's joined by Hestia, and that's when the Silverback notices them. The beast lunges at Hestia, but Belle quickly jumps in front of her, throwing himself into the line of fire. They both crash down a flight of stairs and smash through a big wooden door. Belle's relieved that Hestia is okay, but can't help asking, confused and frustrated, why she didn't run when he told her to. Hestia brushes it off, saying she wants to protect him, just like he wants to protect her, and reminds him of the promise he made. She tries to give him the knife she had forged, but before he can react, the Silverback charges again. To escape, Belle grabs Hestia and carries her out of the alley, finding another hidden one. He's convinced the monster's after her, and decides they have to fight it. Despite his doubts, he's not strong enough and doesn't have the right weapon. Hestia believes in him and hands him a new knife. She names it Hestia's knife. Meanwhile, Ice finishes off another monster and hears from her subordinates about the Silverback chasing a young adventurer. Without hesitation, she rushes toward the sounds of the battle. The Silverback, meanwhile, is following Hestia's scent as she enchants the knife with her blood. Flashbacks reveal the quality of the knife crafted by Hephaestus. Hestia updates Belle's status and is shocked to see his skill has grown by 600 points. She now believes he's strong enough to take down the Silverback. Belle, still nervous, holds the knife, but Hestia encourages him, filling him with the confidence he needs to charge. As he attacks, he accidentally breaks one of his chains. Hestia explains that the knife is alive. It'll grow with him. With renewed strength, Belle Belle keeps fighting, destroying the silverback's face mask and armor, and finally stabs it in the chest, defeating it. The citizens nearby burst into applause, cheering for Belle's victory. Hestia rushes to embrace him, overjoyed by his success, and Belle, thrilled, gladly accepts the praise. Hidden in the crowd, Ice watches, impressed. Just then, Loki, always the troublemaker, tries to grope Eyes, but fails. Meanwhile, Belle and Hestia share a moment, but Hestia faints from exhaustion, much to Belle's dismay. On a rooftop cloaked in shadows, Freya watches the scene and wonders to herself if what she did to Hestia was really the right choice. That night, Ganesha is busy cleaning up the stadium, feeling satisfied with how the whole incident turned out. Aina is at the guild, writing up a report on the monster attack, still processing the chaos. Meanwhile, Belle sits outside the room where Hestia is resting at the hostess of fertility, exhausted but too worried to sleep. Seer approaches him and lets him know that Mia is allowing them to stay there as long as needed. She also confesses she feels guilty for getting Belle involved in all this just because she forgot her purse. Seer then fills him in on the public's view of him, saying that they're all talking about how he defeated the Silverback. She admits she watched most of the action and was seriously impressed. Inside, Hestia stirs and calls out to Belle. He rushes in to check on her, and they catch up on what's happened. Belle brings up the name engraved on his new knife's scabbard, and Hestia reveals that she noticed him eyeing the knives at Hephaestus' shop for a while and decided to have one custom made just for him. She reassures him even though Belle is concerned about the cost and promises that she'll handle it. Overcome with emotion, Belle pulls Hestia into a hug. She asks him to lean on her more often, promising she'll always be there for him. Meanwhile, deep in the dungeon, an adventurer named Ged Raish orders his porter, Lilyruka Arde, to pick up the pace. He insults her, casually saying he can use her as a decoy if they get ambushed by monsters. At the guild, Aina gives Belle a stern talking to for wanting to rush into the 7th level of the dungeon without proper preparation. Belle, though, stands his ground, pointing out that his stats are now average E rank. Aina checks his stats and is surprised by his progress. After some back and forth, she reluctantly agrees to let him try the 7th floor, but only after noticing his lack of proper armor. She asks if he's free the next day. The next morning, Belle meets Aina in the city center by the statue for their shopping trip. They head to Babel to buy Belle some new armor at Hephaestus' shop. Belle complains about the expensive prices, but Aina drags him inside anyway. As they browse, they run into Hestia, dressed as a maid. Belle and Hestia have an awkward moment, and she immediately asks who Aina is. Aina introduces herself, but Hestia, suspicious of her intentions, asks if she's trying to get close to her client. Aina quickly denies it, but the tension is thick. Later, Aina takes Belle to a more affordable shop on the novice blacksmith floor. There, Belle spots a light armor set made by Welf Krozo that catches his eye. The price is within his budget, but it'll drain almost all his funds. Aina finds him and is a bit concerned about his obsession with light armor, but is happy he found something. Still, she points out that Belle should have a party, not just go solo, and suggests he hire a supporter. Belle says he'll think about it. That evening, Belle and Aina part ways. Before leaving, Aina gives him a bracer. On his way home, Belle sees Ged about to attack his supporter, Lily, and steps in to stop him. Ged tries to shift his anger onto Belle, but Ryu steps in and makes Ged leave. Grateful, Lily thanks Ryu, saying she was just being forward. It's then noted that Lily is nowhere in sight, but after a brief chat, they part ways. Hestia's giving Aina the side eye, like she's about to steal Belle's lunch, or his heart.
Yeah, right. And don't forget, Belle, poor guy can't even buy armor without turning it into a soap opera.
The next day, Belle dons the light armor set and the bracer from Aina before heading into the dungeon. At the entrance, he's met by Lily, who offers her services as a supporter. Belle recognizes her as the Palom girl from before, but Lily corrects him, revealing she's actually a Chenthro. She gives him a small smile, not minding his mix-up. Later, by the fountain, they talk about Lily becoming Belle's supporter. Belle admits he was thinking about hiring one, and Lily persuades him to hire her for the day. In the dungeon, Belle takes on a pack of killer ants, while Lily supports him with guidance. Afterward, Lily compliments him on his performance and asks about his knife. Belle explains that it was a gift from his goddess. Curious, Lily asks which familia Belle belongs to, and he tells her he's part of Hestia's familia. She shares that she belongs to the Soma familia, and suggests they finish up by collecting the last magical stone. Back at the guild that evening, Aina tells Belle about the history of the Soma familia. The conversation shifts to Lily, and Belle decides to invite her to join his party, which Aina agrees to. Just as Belle is about to leave, Aina notices that his knife is missing, which bothers him. Meanwhile, Lily tries to sell Belle's knife at Baum Cornwall's store, but the price he offers is low, because the knife is dull and worn out. As Lily leaves the store, she runs into Ryu and Sir. Ryu stops her and demands to see the knife she has. Lily tries to lie, saying the knife is hers, but Ryu doesn't believe her and makes her drop it by tossing a coin at her. Flustered, Lily runs off and bumps into Belle. Ryu and Seer approach Belle, and he nervously asks if they've seen his knife. Ryu then returns it to Belle, and Belle thanks her emotionally for finding it today after he dropped it. Ryu explains that a Palom had it. The two waitresses leave, but not before Sir warns Lily to stop misbehaving. Belle, now alone with Lily, asks if she wants to explore the dungeon with him the next day. The next day, they explore the dungeon together. Lily notices Belle's knife is missing, and Belle explains that he's keeping it in his bracer now. They discuss how to split the loot and agree to divide it evenly. After their dungeon run, they earn 26k Valish. Belle insists on dividing it equally, which surprises Lily. Belle explains that without her he wouldn't have made that much money. Elsewhere, a member of the Soma familia complains about the small amount of valleys he earned. Misha and Ina talk quietly about this. Meanwhile, Ice and Riveria fight an unknown monster, while Freya plans to have some fun with Belle. That night at a bar, Hestia vents her frustration about Belle and Lily to Miak. Miak, indifferent, tries to reason with her, saying Belle belongs to no one, but Hestia doesn't care. She then drinks several mugs of beer, downing each one, and continues her drunken rambling about Belle. The next day, Hestia wakes up with a hangover and Belle takes care of her, much to her annoyance. Wanting to repay Hestia for everything she's done for him, Belle offers to take her out for a meal using the money he earned from his latest dungeon adventure. Hestia sees it as a date and decides to do it that day, preparing herself for it and setting a time and place for their meeting. Later, Hestia goes to the temple baths, where she meets Demeter. As soon as Demeter hears about Hestia's date, she spreads the news to the other bathers. Embarrassed by all the attention, Hestia quickly leaves, but not before revealing the lucky man she's going out with. At the meeting spot, Belle waits for Hestia. When she arrives, the goddesses from the temple bath swarm Belle. Demeter appears and apologizes for spying on her to find out who Belle is. Upset by the attention Belle is getting, especially when he ends up face first in Demeter's chest, Hestia and Belle flee. The goddesses chase them all over town, but Hestia and Belle manage to escape by hiding in the bell tower. There, they enjoy the view of Babel Tower and promise to return someday. Meanwhile, Lily's money is stolen by a Soma Familia member named Canoe. Unfazed by the theft, Lily vows to get Belle's knife back. The next day at the guild, Misha and Ina discuss the Soma Familia's large earnings. Elsewhere, Belle, with Lily's help and her magic knife, fights off a swarm of killer ants and almirages. After the battle, Belle thanks Lily for saving his life and using such a valuable item. They enjoy lunch together, and Lily asks for the next day off to attend a Soma Familia meeting, which Belle agrees to.
I feel Hestia's got that jealous girlfriend vibe. I mean, Demeter really took the goddess of harvest thing a bit too literally with that chest action.
Yeah, but Belle's escape plan was solid. Hiding in a bell tower was really a smooth move. Too bad the goddesses couldn't catch up. The following day, Belle gives Seer a boxed lunch and asks her what she does on her days off. Sir says she likes reading, but Belle finds most books too complicated. He's intrigued by a book on magic, and Sir lets him borrow it. At home, Belle gets lost in the book, trying to answer all the questions it raises. That night, Hestia wakes him up and learns about the magic book. She performs a status update on Belle, and is amazed to find that Belle can now cast firebolt magic. She explains that it's chantless magic and suggests he try it out in the dungeon the next day. However, Belle, eager to try his new magic, heads to the dungeon that night. He uses firebolt against a pack of goblins, but soon faints from exhaustion. Riveria and Ice find him unconscious, and Belle wakes up in a slap. Panicked, he rolls away, leaving Ice confused. The next morning, Belle regrets running away from Ice again. Hestia, waking up, realizes that the magic book Belle borrowed is actually a grimoire and explains its value. Hestia reassures Belle that she'll handle the costs for the book, though Belle is distraught and doesn't want her to pay for it. Later, Belle apologizes to Miak for his mistake, but Miak doesn't hold it against him. Meanwhile, Ina is shopping when she runs into Loki and Riveria. Loki forces Riveria to buy expensive Soma wine for her, and then she reveals that the Soma Familia doesn't worship Soma, but the wine itself. Elsewhere, Lily is followed by Canoe, and when Belle finds out, he confronts GED, Lily's former partner. GED suggests they team up against Lily for her money, but Belle rejects the offer. Lily then approaches Belle and asks what he talked about with GED. Belle brushes it off and asks the same of Lily, who does the same. They both head off to the dungeon, with Lily suspecting their time together is soon coming to an end. Lily's past is revealed, showing that she hated all adventurers because of the abuse she suffered from her old adventuring party. At the Twilight Manor, Loki enjoys more Soma wine and tells Ina more about the Soma Familia. The Soma wine sold in stores is a failed product, and the real Soma wine makes people really drunk. The Familia exists only for this wine, and they make money through extortion and sacrifices. After sharing this information, Loki goes with Ice to do a status update on her. Meanwhile, Lily is preparing for something. At the church, Hestia and Belle talk about how Lily is being targeted by bad adventurers. Hestia thinks Lily can't be trusted, but Belle still believes in her. The next day, outside the dungeon, Belle meets Lily, who suggests they start at level 10. Belle is unsure but agrees after Lily convinces him. Ina is doing a dungeon inspection and runs into Ace. Meanwhile, Lily gives Belle a short sword called a basilard to replace his short knife. Ina overhears a conversation about Lily scamming Belle, and she warns Ice. On the 10th level, Belle faces an orc. After defeating it with his firebolt and basilard, Belle notices Lily is missing. He's soon surrounded by monster lures and orcs. While fighting them, Lily steals his knife and leaves him behind. Lily removes the magic that gave her beastmen ears and heads for the dungeon's exit. She plans to sell Belle's knife and escape the Soma Familia, but then GED trips her, steals her weapons, and beats her. Canoe and his crew arrive, using killer ant corpses to attract more ants. GED tries to run but is killed by the ants. Canoe makes a deal with Lily, and she gives him her gnome lockbox key, but Canoe uses her as a decoy to escape. Lily feels unlucky, but just as she's about to die, Belle uses firebolt to kill the ants. Ina asks Hestia to convince Belle to stop trusting Lily, but Hestia says Belle doesn't want to abandon her. While they talk, Belle fights the last of the killer ants to save Lily. He tells her someone else killed the remaining orcs while she was gone. Bell forgives Lily for betraying him. Later, Bell apologizes to Ina for losing the bracer she gave him, but she's just happy he's safe. The next day, Bell meets Lily again, and they decide to work together once more. Freya is sitting in her library thinking about Bell's progress. She notices that he is growing, but he's still unsure of himself. She believes that once he gets past this doubt, he will grow even faster, and Ottar can handle the rest. Bell and Lily take a walk together. Lily tells Bell about her transformation magic, which will help her hide her identity. She plans to make people think she died in the dungeon. Lily asks Bell if he's okay with her being his companion again after she betrayed him. Bell reassures her that he's forgiven her, and they continue to the church, Bell's home. There, Lily meets Hestia, and while Bell makes tea, Hestia and Lily talk. Lily promises she will never betray Bell again, and Hestia believes her. However, Hestia still doesn't like how Lily treated Bell before and now tries to be nice. Hestia tells Lily that she must protect Bell to prove she's serious about her vow. Just before Bell arrives, Hestia says Lily should never try to get too close to him. When Bell comes in, Hestia hugs his arm, saying she's excited to work with him. Lily, feeling embarrassed, hugs his other arm and promises to keep her vow. Bell is shocked and quickly leaves, claiming he has to talk to Ina at the guild. After he leaves, Hestia and Lily argue, blaming each other for Bell running away. At the guild, Bell sees Ina talking with Ice. He tries to leave but bumps into a big man and then Ys, who stops him. Ina scolds Bell, and he apologizes. Ice has something to talk to Bell about. She returns Bell's arm protector, and Bell realizes she saved him from the orcs in the 10th level dungeon. Ys apologizes for letting the Minotaur escape, but Bell apologizes for not thanking her properly and being scared in front of her. Ys smiles, and Bell smiles too. Ina watches the whole thing.
Did you see Belle's face when he bumps into Ace? I swear the guy's about to explode from the awkwardness.
I think Bell's heart just skipped a few beats though. Outside the guild, Ice tells Bell that making it to the 10th level of the dungeon is impressive. Bell tries to downplay it, but Ice offers to teach him how to fight better. The next morning, Bell and Ice practice combat on top of the city wall. Ace teaches Bell some combat stances using his knife, and Bell thinks Ice is a natural fighter. When Bell tries to ask her something, Ice kicks him in the face, knocking him out. This just makes Bell believe even more that Ace is a skilled fighter. Ice apologizes, but Bell doesn't mind. She suggests they spar to improve. Ace uses her sheath as a weapon and notes that Bell has a fear of fighting, especially of the Minotaur. They continue sparring, with Ice giving Bell tips until the sun rises. In the dungeon, Ottar fights a group of Minotaurs at Freya's request. A new Minotaur with a blood-soaked weapon appears, and Ottar, impressed, destroys its weapon. He gives it one of his own and tells it to master it. Meanwhile, Bell and Lily are exploring the dungeon, aiming to go as far as they can because the next day is their day off. Lily notices bruises on Bell's face, but Bell downplays it. They're soon attacked by a group of imps, and with Lily's help, Bell kills them. Orcs appear next, joining the remaining imps. Lily suggests retreating to regroup, but Bell refuses, determined to become as strong as Ace. Meanwhile, Ottar spars with the Minotaur he gave his weapon to, and breaks its right horn. The next morning, Bell continues sparring with Ice, getting knocked out multiple times. When they take a break, Ace asks Bell how he's getting so strong so quickly. Bell says he's not that strong, but he wants to be for someone special. To his surprise, Ice says she understands that feeling. They then do special nap training, which is important for surviving in the dungeon. Bell is surprised at how quickly Ace falls asleep. Bell's grandpa appears as a manifestation and encourages Bell to take advantage of the sleeping Ace. Another manifestation of Hestia appears and tells Bell not to do it, and the two manifestations argue. In the end, Bell decides not to take advantage of Ace while she sleeps. Back in the dungeon, Ottar finishes his fight with the Minotaur after his weapon breaks. That evening, Bell and Ys walk through the city and stop at a food stall where Hestia works. Hestia scolds Bell for his behavior, but then she's told what happened with Ice. She allows it to continue for now, but warns Ice not to get too close to Bell. News spreads through the guild about Ice single-handedly defeating a boss creature on the 37th level of the dungeon. Bell feels down about the news, but is more determined than ever to reach Ace's level. As Bell walks through the city, Seer approaches him and asks him to wash dishes for her. Although Bell isn't thrilled about it, he agrees, hoping it will distract him from Ice's accomplishment. The pile of dishes is huge, so Ryu steps in to help. While cleaning, Bell asks Ryu, a former adventurer, for advice on how to rank up. She tells him that he'll need to do good deeds, defeat strong enemies, and use techniques and strategies. Bell remembers Ice saying he lacked those things. Ryu also suggests that Bell form a party to make up for his weaknesses, and emphasizes that going on adventures is essential for leveling up. Sir, who's nearby, overhears their conversation. The next day, Bell and Ice continue sparring, and Bell finally lands a counterattack on her. It's the last day of their training together, and they both thank each other for their help, wishing each other the best. Bell silently hopes to reach Ice's level one day. Back at the church, Bell packs for his next adventure and tells Hestia about his last day of training with Ace. Before leaving, Hestia tries to show Bell his new stats, but he refuses to look at them until he returns. At the dungeon entrance, Finn Daimni, the captain of the Loki Familia, gives a speech to his members about the upcoming adventure. The Familia will split into two groups, one led by Finn and the other by Gareth. The Hephaestus Familia blacksmiths will provide support. The goal is to reach level 18 and regroup, then push on to the 50th level. Their ultimate objective is to reach the the never-before-reached 59th level. Meanwhile, Atar reports to Freya, who wonders if Belle will grow significantly from this challenge. On the 9th level of the dungeon, Belle and Lily are unsettled by an eerie, ominous feeling. Belle notices the lack of monsters and adventurers, which reminds him of his encounter with the Minotaur. As they continue, they're suddenly confronted by the same one-horned Minotaur, wielding Atar's spare broadsword. Lily pushes Belle out of the way just in time to dodge the attack, but Belle's firebolt spells have no effect on the beast. The Minotaur, and between then slams Belle into a dungeon wall, leaving him hurt and exhausted. Meanwhile, Finn's group is alerted to the Minotaur on the 9th level. Concerned that another adventurer might have fallen victim to it, part of the Loki Familia sets out to assist. Belle, struggling, realizes his hesitance stems from his own cowardice. After Lily is knocked out from saving him, Belle orders her to flee, but she stubbornly refuses. Left alone, Belle faces off against the Minotaur, now wielding two weapons, hoping to buy time for Lily to escape. The Minotaur breaks Belle's chestplate with its horn, but just then, Ice arrives at the scene. As Belle laments being saved by her again, the rest of the Loki Familia, led by Finn, joins the fray. Belle, eager to prove himself, challenges the Minotaur once more. Beat recognizes Belle as the tomato guy that Ice once saved and mocks Belle for his incompetence. Tiona asks Ice if it's alright for Belle to continue fighting the Minotaur alone. Lily, however, pleads for help, causing her to faint from exhaustion, which Reveria heals. Moved by Lily's plea, Bet decides to assist Belle, though he's surprised to see Belle holding his own against the Minotaur. While the fight rages on, Freya watches from afar, fascinated by Belle's struggle. Despite Belle's impressive knife skills, the Minotaur's defenses are unbreachable. As the fight reaches its peak, Belle's Basilard is broken, but he manages to stab the Minotaur's right arm. With the Minotaur unable to use its sword, Belle uses it against the beast, landing several slashes before finishing the fight with multiple firebolt spells. After the Minotaur is defeated, Lily rushes to Belle, and the Loki Familia approaches. Reveria checks Belle's stats at Bates' request, revealing that all of his abilities are S-ranked. That night, Belle is bedridden with Hestia by his side. She congratulates him on his victory with a kiss, proud of his accomplishment. At the guild, Ina can't help but notice the huge grin on Belle's face. To her shock, Belle casually drops the bomb that he's hit level 2 in just a month and a half. Ina's jaw nearly hits the floor. Later that day, Belle is staring in awe at the Minotaur's horn when Hestia checks his stats. To Belle's delight, Hestia reveals that he's unlocked a second skill, Argonaut. Hestia's eyes sparkle as she explains that this skill symbolizes Belle's dream to become a true hero. Over the moon with excitement, she rushes off to attend Donatius Day, a quarterly meeting of the gods, where Belle will also get a second name. As Hestia walks through the grand halls of the temple, she's approached by Takamikazuchi. The two chat about Belle's shocking rise to rank 2 in less than 2 months, before switching to a discussion about Yamato Mikoto, a member of Takamikazuchi's familia, also reaching rank 2. Meanwhile, Belle, busy cleaning the church, wonders what his second name will be. Just as he looks at his old armor, Hestia bursts in, beaming, and reveals his second name. Later that night at the Hostess of Fertility, Belle looks defeated as he tells Lily his new name.
Little Rookie? Is that really what they call you?
Little Rookie. Lily, not impressed, thinks it sounds pretty ordinary. Hestia, however, defends it, saying it's the safest option. The conversation shifts as Sur and Ryu join the table and the other patrons start recognizing Belle for his recent heroics. When asked why the two waitresses are hanging out with them, Ryu admits it was at Mia's request. The group talks about Belle's plan to tackle the middle levels of the dungeon. Little Rookie? Belle really went with that? Guess he's trying to keep his ego in check, but even Lily's not having it.
Hestia's trying to spin it like it's a genius move, but we all know it's just safe.
Ryu warns Belle not to go past the 13th level, where the monsters get brutal. She suggests recruiting more people into his party to make the journey easier. Just as they're discussing this, a bulky adventurer with facial scars and his crew approach Belle's table, offering Tasmane to recruit him into their party in exchange for time with Ryu. Ryu, not having it, quickly shuts him down, even restraining him for a moment. The guy tries to push back, but Mia steps in, forcing him and his crew to pay their bill and leave. The next day, Belle visits the Hephaestus Familia's novice blacksmith shop, hoping to find another set of armor from Welf Krauzo. Unfortunately, no luck, no Welf sets in sight. But when he asks the store clerk, the man laughs and shows Belle a set forged by none other than Welf himself. Outside the store, Belle and Welf strike up a conversation, and Welf offers him a deal. He'll forge Belle some new gear, but in exchange, Belle will invite him to join his party. Belle, Lily, and their new member, Welf, reach the 10th floor of the dungeon, where Lily voices her disapproval of Welf, joining without her say-so. Belle, eager to defend his new ally, reveals Welf's full name, prompting Lily to share the tragic history of the Krauzo family, once famous for crafting magical weapons, until they lost the ability to do so, ruining their name. Welf coolly confirms the tale, and just as the group processes this, monsters, imps and orcs, burst from the ground. A battle ensues, and as Belle fights, he realizes he's becoming faster and stronger, his magic improving. He defeats a hard-armored monster with a firebolt, noting that he's getting closer to Ice level of power. Meanwhile, Bet, Tion, and Tyona battle a group of flame rocks. Reveria tells Gareth the trio's motivation is Belle's recent rise, inspiring even Ace to join the fight. Back with Belle's group, Welf notices a blue-white sparkle from Belle's hand just before an infant dragon appears, scaring off another party. It spots Lily and chases her, but Belle defeats it with another firebolt. Later, Hestia reveals that the sparkle came from Belle's new Argonaut skill. Belle asks her about Welf's family, and she explains that the Croso family once forged magical swords but lost that ability, leaving Welf as the only one capable of it. However, Welf refuses Abz to make magical weapons for reasons unknown. The next day, Belle tells Welf they're skipping the dungeon due to Lily's sickness. As a treat, Welf takes Belle to his blacksmith workshop, where Belle tries out a sword he's impressed by. Welf assumes Belle wants a magical weapon, thinking Hestia might have mentioned it, but Belle apologizes. Welf confesses his fear that Belle would see him differently once he knew about his skill. Noticing Belle's minotaur horn, Welf decides to forge a new knife using it as material. As he forges, Welf admits his hatred of making magical weapons due to the unsavory clientele he attracts. Once finished, he's proud of the knife and gives it to Belle. Afterward, Lily briefs the group on the dangers of the middle levels of the dungeon, and they prepare to head deeper. Hestia says goodbye to Belle outside the church. She notices the salamander wool he's wearing, and Belle explains that Ina said it's important for the mid-levels of the dungeon. After that, Belle leaves and Hestia watches him go. Outside the dungeon, Takamikazuchi sees his familia off as they enter the dungeon. Hestia walks up to him and they talk about their familias heading to the mid-levels. A small earthquake happens, and it shakes a bit longer each time. Hestia starts to worry about Belle's safety. Inside the dungeon, Belle's group fights a group of hellhounds. After defeating them, they face a new group of Almiraj. Meanwhile, Hermes and his captain, ASFE, talk about the rumors surrounding Belle. Hermes is not bothered by the rumors because he's curious about Belle. He even jokes with ASAE about being jealous of Belle getting his attention, but Asfi denies it. They then go to the hostess of fertility and meet Chloe and Seer. Back in the dungeon, Takamikazuchi's familia is running from a group of Almiraj carrying a wounded member. Mikoto, their leader, turns back to fight the Almiraj, but soon that they are chased by hellhounds. At the same time, Belle's group fights against a large group of Almiraj. Uka, carrying the wounded member, decides it's best to save themselves and not help Belle's group. Takamikazuchi's familia runs past Belle's, and the hellhounds join the Almiraj. With no choice, Belle's group runs into a narrow hallway. Belle uses his firebolt spell, and they manage to defeat a few hellhounds. But Welf gets injured in the process, and the group realizes they're surrounded. Belle remembers Ryu's warning about the dangers of the mid-levels, and they are now surrounded by many Almiraj. More monsters appear from the ceiling, causing part of the floor to collapse on them. After the dust settles, Welf is trapped under a rock, and Lily is exhausted. A hellhound appears ready to attack. Panicked, Hestia goes to the guild, but she learns Belle isn't there. Ina asks about Belle's whereabouts, and Hestia submits a quest to find Belle and his group. While the quest is being processed, Takamikazuchi arrives at the guild with a guilt-ridden Uka and Mikoto. Belle's group, now 2 floors lower than before, is trying to find a way out, but keeps hitting dead ends. They hear monsters getting closer, and Welf says they should leave him behind if he becomes a burden. Lily suggests that if they can reach the safe zone at level 18, they might be able to make it back to the surface alive by teaming up with a stronger group of adventurers. She also mentions that the natural shafts between the dungeon floors could help them avoid the stairs. As for the floor boss on level 17, Lily believes it won't be a problem since the Loki familia recently passed through there, and it will take a long time for it to revive. Belle agrees with the plan and the group continues. Meanwhile, Takamikazuchi, Hephaestus, Miyach, and Dr. Naza discuss the situation regarding Hestia's familia in the dungeon. Hephaestus can't send help from her familia because those who could enter the mid-levels are a width of the Loki familia. Takamikazuchi can only send 3 members of his familia. Hermes arrives with ASV and offers his help, claiming he wants to help an old friend. The other gods criticize his motives, but Hermes insists he's sincere. He offers for ASV to join the search party, and she reluctantly agrees. Hestia allows her to join, and despite his claims of sincerity, Hermes' real motive is simply to enter the dungeon. Hestia then says she wants to join too, and Hermes reluctantly agrees. He believes Belle is okay. Back in the dungeon, Belle's group is fine and has managed to climb down another level through a shaft. Hephaestus asks Hestia to pass a message to Welf. Hermes suggests recruiting Ryu to help since their current team is still not strong enough. Belle's group continues exploring deeper into the dungeon, using a smelly sack to repel monsters. They're still confronted by a hellhound, but Welf uses his will-o-wisp spell, causing the hellhound's fireball to backfire and kill it. Though Welf is exhausted, he insists he's still okay to continue. On the surface, Freya wonders what Hermes is up to and says that only she can play with Belle. Back in the dungeon, the odor from their sack wears off and a minotaur appears. Belle, fueled by intense emotions, easily defeats the minotaur. Then, 3 more minotaurs show up. Using the weapon dropped by the first minotaur and powered by his Argonaut skill, Belle defeats all 3, leaving him breathless and his companions worried. Belle really took down a whole gang of minotaurs. Like, it was no big deal. Dude's got that Argonaut skill working overtime.
Yeah, but man, did you see his face after? He's about to pass out, and Freya's up top, probably thinking, Belle's all mine now.
In the mid-levels of the dungeon, Ryu and Asifai are on the front lines, slicing through Almiraj and hellhounds like it's nothing. Once they wipe out the monsters monsters, they keep moving and until they hit a cave-in. While Ryu climbs the rubble, Hestia spots one of Belle's weapons buried inside. At the top, Ryu finds monster stones and empty potion vials. AS5 puts it all together, thinking Belle's group is heading for the safe zone on the 18th level. Ryu and Hermes agree, and Hestia still feels Belle's presence deep in the dungeon. Meanwhile, Welf is knocked out with Mind down after overusing Will-O-Wisp, and Lily's passed out too. Belle refuses to leave them behind, so he carries them down a shaft into the 17th level. Back with the search party, Hestia is digging into Hermes, questioning why he's so eager to help find Belle. Hermes admits someone asked him to, but also says it's out of his own personal interest. When Belle finally reaches the 18th floor, he sees the exit, but right as he's about to make a run for it, the floor boss starts to spawn. Belle dodges it and sprints toward the exit. Once on the 18th floor, Ice approaches, and Belle begs her to help his teammates. Belle wakes up in a tent, calling for his friends. Ice is there, telling him that Riveria and the others healed his comrades. Ace is relieved to see Belle can walk, and she sends him to report to Captain Finn Dimney. In Finn's tent, Belle thanks him and offers his services in return for their kindness. Finn tells Belle that many of his members are poisoned, and the group they sent for an antidote hasn't returned yet. They'll be staying on the 18th floor for a while. Once Belle finishes his business, he steps outside with ease, only to be greeted by Tione and Tiona. Tiona, all excited, wraps her arm around Belle's, gushing over his victory against the Minotaur. Tione joins in, praising Belle too, making him bawl lush like crazy. Belle and Ice walk through a bright forest area. They soon leave the forest and find a large tree with a glowing crystal formation above it. Ice explains that the light will fade over time, making it dark. This place is known by adventurers as the Under Resort or the Labyrinth Paradise. That night, Welf and Lily wake up and apologize to Belle for not being helpful earlier. Belle forgives them. AIs then appears and tells the group that dinner will be ready soon. At dinner, Belle and his group join the low-key Familia. Just then, Hestia and her search party arrive. Hestia, very emotional, tries to hug Belle, but Lily pulls her away. Hermes approaches Belle, introducing himself and the members of Takamikazuchi's Familia who helped them. Inside a tent, Mikoto kneels and apologizes to Belle, asking for his forgiveness. Belle has no problem with Mikoto and her group, but Lily and Welf are upset with them for causing trouble. Uka says it was his decision, and he doesn't regret it because it was the right choice at the time. This annoys Welf, but Belle says he would have done the same thing in that situation. It will take 2 days for the Loki Familia to rest before they can fight the Goliath on the 17th floor. Hermes suggests they take it easy the next day. After this, everyone leaves the tent. Before Welf leaves, he receives a gift and a message from Hephaestus. Belle admires the crystal above the tree, and Ice joins him, looking worried about him. The two talk, and Ice promises to show Belle the city and the dungeon, which excites him. Suddenly, Hestia appears between them, complaining about being left out of their plans for the next day. Belle pushes Hestia up a slope, and they finally catch up with the other adventurers at the top. The view is beautiful, with the forest and glowing crystal formations in the distance. They arrive at the town of Rivera, known for its high prices on both goods and inns. While Hestia argues with a shopkeeper over prices, Belle runs into the man who had confronted him at the bar earlier. The two almost get into a fight, but Ice steps in to stop it. Later, Hestia shows Belle her new perfume, which he compliments. Lily, however, criticizes Hestia for being self-centered, and Hestia snaps back, saying Lily is no better for buying a new backpack. After their argument, Tiona invites Hestia to join her and the others for a bath, and Hestia agrees. The ladies from Takamikazuchi's Familia decide to join as well. Hermes calls Belle over to talk to him at the camp. At the camp, Bet returns with antidotes for his Familia. He sees Belle talking to Hermes and demands to know why Belle is there, but Finn gives him a vague answer. Meanwhile, Belle and Hermes are watching the ladies bathe in the lake. Belle doesn't want to pee, but Hermes insists it's how men show romance. Belle remembers hearing the same thing from his grandfather, but he still doesn't feel comfortable. Then, Belle loses his balance when Hermes spins around, and he accidentally falls into the bathing area, surprising the ladies. Belle, flustered by Ace's nudity, runs away in embarrassment. Belle tried to be a good boy, but Hermes just threw him into the fire. Poor guy didn't stand a chance.
That was a big oops moment for Belle. Dude's gonna be avoiding eye contact for weeks.
Out of breath, Belle runs into Ryu, who's also bathing. She senses someone was spying on her and throws a rock at Belle with incredible speed, leaving a hole in the tree near him. Belle immediately apologizes and bows to Ryu, begging for her forgiveness. She forgives him, which surprises Belle, and she comments on how self-deprecating he is. They then visit a small burial ground where Ryu places flowers by the weapons of her former comrades from the Familia she once belonged to. Ryu opens up about her painful past. Her companions were killed in a trap set by a rival Familia, and in retaliation, she wiped them out. However, this act led to her being blacklisted by the guild. Ryu admits that if it weren't for Sir finding her alone in an alley one rainy night, she would have died there. This is how she ended up working at the Hostess of Fertility, thanks to Mia's compassion. After sharing her story, Ryu scolds herself, calling herself a violent elf consumed by revenge. Belle, not one to let this slide, comments on her self-deprecating attitude. Grabbing his hand, instant, Ryu tells Belle he's a man worthy of respect. Later that night at Riviera, a man named Mord, who had previously confronted Belle, is frustrated by Belle's progress. He plans to make Belle pay. He's soon joined by a mysterious figure. The next day, Bet, still fuming, takes out his anger on Belle, but Tione and Tiona quickly drag him away. Ys then approaches Belle, and they talk about their plan to head back to the surface the following day. Hestia, watching from a distance, curses Belle for peeping on them, especially when she was alone in the bath. Suddenly, an invisible enemy snatches Hestia away. Belle finds a note left in their tent, realizing she's been taken hostage. Without wasting a moment, he heads to the location where she's being held. When Belle arrives, he's confronted by Mord and his group. Mord challenges him to a one-on-one duel. If Mord wins, he takes all of Belle's possessions, but if Belle wins, Hestia will be returned. Impressed by Belle's boldness, Mord slams his sword into the ground, smashing a small crystal. Belle is temporarily blinded by the flash, and when his vision clears, Mord has disappeared. Suddenly, Mord attacks him from all angles. Far off, Hermes and Asphere are watching, and it's revealed that Hermes orchestrated this entire event to show Belle the other side of his journey. Meanwhile, Welf and the Takamika Zuchi familia arrive, engaging Mord's companions in battle. Overhearing the commotion, the guards watching over Hestia decide to join the fight, abandoning their post. Hestia, now alone, is rescued by Lily, who is disguised as an Almirage. During the chaos, Welf loses a gift from Hephaestus, and Ryu arrives just in time to help. Belle, struggling against the invisible Mord, is on the verge of defeat when, instinctively, he dodges an attack. With his eyes closed, Belle can now evade Mord's attacks with ease. Annoyed, Mord draws his sword and presses harder. To counter, Belle uses the powder from the shattered crystal to temporarily blind Mord, then shatters his sword with his duo blades and lands a dropkick that sends Mord crashing to the ground, making him visible again. Before Mord can recover, Hestia steps in, unleashing her godly might to stop him. As Belle embraces her, an evil tremor shakes the ground. The ceiling above them cracks open, signaling that something much bigger is coming.
Hestia uses her godly power, which causes the dungeon to lock the floor and summon a black Goliath. Before Belle can help fight the monster, Ryu stops him. She asks if he's sure about fighting with his current party. After getting everyone's approval, Belle answers yes. Ryo, amused, tells him he's not qualified to be the leader, but he's not wrong either. She then leaves to fight the monsters, leaving Chigusa in charge of protecting Hestia. Belle and the party follow her. Mord and his group are surrounded by minotaurs, but Lily rescues Mord. In Riviera, ASFI meets Bors and his group to organize the town's defense. Bors is hesitant at first, but after learning all exits are blocked, he agrees to help, knowing they must defeat the Black Goliath to escape. Ryu, Mikoto, Uka, and Welf try to fight the Black Goliath, but their attacks don't work. Ryu believes the floor boss's level is around 5. ASFI tells Ryu that reinforcements from Riviera are ready. ASFI then acts as a decoy, while Bors' men buy time for the mages to prepare a powerful spell. When the mages are ready, they cast their spells, severely damaging the Black Goliath. The vanguard charges at it, but they realize it can regenerate. Fully healed, the Black Goliath counterattacks. Surrounded by monsters, Belle defeats a minotaur and is joined by Ryu and ASFI. They plan to keep distracting the Goliath so the mages can attack again. Lily returns to Hestia and asks for all supplies to be gathered. Hestia has a man take care of it. Lily notices something wrapped in cloth with a Joker symbol. Meanwhile, Ryu is struggling against the Black Goliath's regeneration ability. Chigusa reaches Oka and gives him his shield, despite his reluctance. Belle charges up his right hand with his Argonaut skill and shoots a firebolt at the Black Goliath, blowing off the top of its head. However, the Goliath retaliates with a roar blast, sending Belle flying. The Goliath's head regenerates and it tries to slap Belle, but Uka blocks it with his shield. When Hestia and Lily arrive, they find Belle injured but alive. ASFI goes back to fight the Goliath, and Ryu joins her at Hestia's request. Hestia and Lily call out to Belle, who is unconscious. Belle's spirit hears Hestia's voice but can't move. Hermes then appears and says a quote from Belle's grandfather, which helps Belle awaken. Empowered by his Argonaut skill, Belle grabs a large two-handed sword and charges at the Black Goliath. Asphy blinds the monster. Ryu casts Luminous Wind, and Mikoto briefly holds the Goliath. Welf then uses his magical sword, Kazuki, on the Goliath. Belle uses his heroic shot to destroy its upper body and finishes it off with Hestia's knife. Hermes excitedly tells Zeus that his grandson is not a failure. In fact, Belle is the last hero from Zeus's familia. Back at the hostess of fertility, Belle and his companions celebrate their victory. Belle lies on Hestia's lap, resting peacefully.
That awakening was pure power, grabbing a giant sword and charging at the Black Goliath like a true hero.
Hestia's knife finishing off the Goliath was the cherry on top. Hero status confirmed, and Hermes can't stop gloating. Belle, Welf, Lily, and Mikoto were fighting hellhounds in a dungeon. After the battle, Belle thanked Mikoto for her help, and she thanked him back since it was her idea to go there. As they talked, Belle thought about how he wanted to become as strong as ice one day. Later that night, they celebrated because Welf reached rank 2. Lily joked that Welf might leave the group now since he got what he wanted, his forging skill, but Welf said he wasn't going anywhere. He also thought Mikoto should have joined their celebration. While talking about Belle leveling up, a rude Palom from the Apollo Familia came and insulted them. Belle wanted to fight back, but Welf knocked the Palom out with his ale mug. However, another member of the Apollo Familia beat both Belle and Welf easily. Luckily, Bet stepped in to save Belle before things got worse. Back at the church, Hestia cared for Belle's injuries while Lily helped Welf. Hestia was thankful Belle stood up for her, but told him not to worry about her so much next time. When she found out it was the Apollo Familia who caused the trouble, she got angry.
Belle, next time, just let Welf take care of the mug throwing. He's got that down to an art.
Honestly, if Apollo's guys keep this up, Hestia's gonna need a whole new set of stress relievers. The next day, Belle got scolded by Ina at the guild for getting into a fight. Then, 2 Apollo Familia members gave him a letter for Hestia. When Hestia read it, she saw it was an invitation to a god's banquet. She decided to bring Miak and Takamikazuchi along so she wouldn't go alone. At the banquet, Belle and Hestia joined Miak and Naza outside Apollo's base. Inside, they met Hermes, Takamikazuchi, Aesfi, and Mikoto. Apollo appeared, giving a big speech before the party started. As everyone enjoyed the event, Hermes pulled Belle aside to share some secrets about Apollo and his history. When Freya and her ever-loyal companion Autar arrived at the grand party, she wasted no time weaving her way toward Hestia and her group. Her charm was undeniable, but the moment she tried to inch closer to Belle, Hestia snapped, making it crystal clear that Freya had crossed a line. Aware she had overstepped, Freya gracefully retreated with Autar, leaving behind a storm of tension. Not long after, Loki and Ice made their entrance, heading straight for Hestia and Belle. The room heated up instantly as the 2 goddesses locked horns in a fiery argument. The situation only worsened when Loki mischievously gauged Belle, pushing Hestia's patience to its limit. Tired of the escalating drama, the 2 deities stormed off in opposite directions, dragging Ice and Belle along with them. Belle, overwhelmed by the party's chaos, slipped out onto the balcony to catch his breath. Out there, he spotted the man he'd clashed with at the restaurant, deep in conversation with another member of the Apollo Familia. Before Belle could fully process what he overheard, Hermes appeared out of nowhere, whisking him away for a private talk. In a quieter corner, Hermes casually asked Belle about his reasons for becoming an adventurer. Belle, reflecting warmly, shared how his late grandfather had inspired him. Hermes, ever the trickster, suggested Belle find someone to dance with, but Belle shyly declined. Taking matters into his own hands, Hermes approached Ice with the idea, but conveniently remembered a prior commitment and volunteered Belle in his place. Belle found himself reluctantly swept onto the dance floor with Ice, and their unexpected pairing drew every eye in the room. Hestia and Loki, both fuming, were restrained by Aesfi as they watched the duo. Meanwhile, Freya, clearly amused, slyly asked Autar if summoning minotaurs to crash the party was possible. Autar, ever the voice of reason, denied her mischievous request. As the dance continued, the lights suddenly dimmed, leaving only a spotlight illuminating Belle and Ys. The dramatic moment was interrupted by Apollo, the host of the event, who stepped forward to confront Belle. Hestia immediately shielded her beloved adventurer, but Apollo, seeking revenge for the chaos caused by Hestia's Familia, challenged them to a war game. After the Apollo Familia issued their challenge, the stakes became clear. If they won the war game, Belle would be forced to join their ranks. Hestia, however, had no intention of entertaining such a demand and stormed out of the party with Belle in tow. The next day, Hestia explained the war game's rules to Belle at the church. Their conversation was cut short when the Apollo Familia launched a surprise attack, surrounding the church in an all-out assault. The commotion reached the ears of the hostess of fertility waitresses, who quickly deduced that it was a Familia clash. Belle and Hestia managed to evade the initial wave of attackers by sneaking out the back, only to be cornered by another group of Apollo Familia members. Belle fought fiercely, dispatching most of them, and used the cover of a smokescreen from a magic attack to escape with Hestia in his arms. However, their path was blocked by a dead end. With no other options, Belle leaped onto a rooftop, only to face more pursuers, including the 2 women who had invited him to Apollo's soiree. When one of them offered peace if Belle surrendered, he refused outright. Their clash escalated, and Belle escaped once more, using his firebolt spell as cover. Did Belle just make rooftop parkour his new hobby? Guy's got moves.
Yeah, he's turning rooftops into his personal gym. Maybe next time he'll throw in a backflip for style points.
Among the pursuers, Cassandra warned her partner Daphne not to engage Belle, hinting at a premonition from her own neuromancy. Daphne dismissed it as nonsense and continued the pursuit. Elsewhere, Lily and Welf waited near the dungeon entrance, growing concerned about Belle's unusual tardiness. News of the war between the Hestia and Apollo Familias soon reached them, as well as Ice, who heard about it from Tiona. Finn cautioned Ice that this conflict wasn't like past ones, and Ice acknowledged the gravity of the situation. Back on the run, Belle and Hestia faced relentless relentless pursuit. Now joined by members of the Soma Familia, Belle quickly overpowered the new attackers, but was then confronted by Hyacinthos, the man from the bar. With a smug air, Hyacinthos praised Belle for his perseverance before challenging him directly. Their battle began, and it became evident that Hyacinthos was far more skilled. He overwhelmed Belle with precise strikes, leaving him wounded and bleeding from several cuts. Aina begged her boss to stop the fight between Apollo and Hestia Familias, but he refused. He said the guild couldn't get involved in Familia fights. Aina was upset she couldn't help Belle, but Belle was in worse shape. He was badly hurt from Hyacinthos' attacks. Even though he was nearly beaten, Belle refused to give up and attacked Hyacinthos again. Hyacinthos fought back, angry that Apollo liked Belle more than him. Belle was almost knocked out when Naza saved him with her sniping, letting Belle and Hestia escape for a bit. Soon, more Apollo Familia members caught up to them, but Mikoto, Uka, and Chigusa showed up to fight back. Then, Welf, Lily, and Miak arrived. Miak healed Belle with a potion, while Welf and Lily held off the attackers. As they ran again, more ambushers appeared. Welf and Lily stayed behind so Belle and Hestia could reach the guild. After Lily defeated her enemies, a man named Xanis from the Soma Familia appeared. Welf struggled against his opponent and begged Lily for help, but she refused and said she was going back to her familia, like she was in a trance. Welf realized his enemy was also from the Soma Familia. Hiding under a bridge, Hyacinthos threatened Belle, saying he'd never stop hunting him. Hestia gave Belle two choices: fight an unwinnable battle or leave Orario. She also asked what Belle thought of her. Belle said he respected her, but Hestia got so emotional she accidentally revealed their location. Tired of running, Belle and Hestia went to the Apollo Familia base and agreed to the war games. Later, Welf found them and told them Lily had left. Belle then tried to meet Ice for help, but wasn't allowed inside, as they thought he wanted to recruit her for the war games. Tiona appeared and told Belle to leave, but as he walked away, he ran into Tiona and Ice. After talking briefly, Ice agreed to train Belle for the war games, and Tiona offered to help too. At night, the Soma Familia members gathered outside their mansion, begging their god Soma for his famous wine. Inside, Soma was busy grinding ingredients when Xanis and Lily came to see him. Xanis claimed Lily wanted to return to the Familia, but Lily said she wanted to leave. Angry at being contradicted, Xanis said Lily could leave only if she paid 10 million valis. Soma didn't seem to care and told Xanis to handle it. Later, Xanis visited Lily in a cell at the Soma Familia base. He mocked her, saying Soma only cared about making wine. He also brought up her past, saying she never tried to improve their Familia before. A flashback revealed how Xanis had pressured Lily to return to the Familia during the Apollo Familia ambush. Xanis knew Lily could use transformation magic, thanks to Soma, and planned to exploit her ability for the rest of her life. Laughing, Xanis left while the jailer scoffed at him. 10 million valleys? Xanis has lost it.
Soma's too busy with his wine to even notice.
At the Hostess of Fertility, waitresses Chloe and Anya talked about the war games and noted that Belle and Hestia hadn't been seen. Rumors said they ran away, but Sir believed Belle wouldn't abandon the fight. Meanwhile, Hestia held a meeting to plan Lily's rescue with help from the Miak and Takamikazuchi familias. She explained Belle was busy training for the war game. At the gods meeting, Apollo complained about Hestia skipping meetings. Loki teased that Hestia might run away, but Hestia soon arrived. Apollo declared that if his side won, Belle would join his familia. If Hestia's side won, they'd get whatever they wanted. Hermes drew the war game theme, a siege. This seemed unfair since Hestia's familia had only one member. To balance things, Apollo allowed them to be the attackers and let them add one helper from outside Orario. Freya mocked Apollo for his petty conditions, but the terms were set. After the meeting, Hestia discusses her choice for the extra wargame participant with Miak and Takamikazuchi. She plans to have Hermes negotiate, but that must wait until Lily is rescued from the Soma Familia. Meanwhile, Lily remains imprisoned and is visited by Xanis, who intends to exploit her transformation magic to satisfy his greed. When Lily calls him out, Xanis defends his selfish desires for wealth, women, and wine, mirroring Soma's. Suddenly, an alarm sounds, and the jailer, Chandra, informs Xanis of intruders. Amused, Xanis dismisses the threat, but warns Lily that if she resists, he'll force her to drink Soma's addictive wine, enslaving her to the familia. Disgusted by Xanis, Chandra secretly helps Lily escape. As Lily sneaks through the halls, she witnesses Hestia and her allies battling the Soma familia. She begs them to stop for her sake, but Hestia insists that Belle needs her help for the war games. touched. Lily confronts Soma in his brewing chamber, pleading for him to end the fighting. Soma agrees only if she can make the same plea after drinking his divine wine. Lily complies and momentarily succumbs to the wine's effects, but snaps out of it after hallucinating Belle. She repeats her plea, surprising Soma. Xanis intervenes, but Soma silences him and resolves the battle by spilling a vase of divine wine into the courtyard. Furious, Xanis tries to kill Lily but is stopped by Naza and Welf. Afterward, Lily requests to transfer to the Hestia Familia, and Soma consents, reflecting on her transformation. Hestia acknowledges Lily's growth since leaving Soma's Familia. Outside, Hestia thanks her allies, who part ways. Mikoto and Welf later ask their gods to transfer them to the Hestia Familia. Hermes and Seer approach Ryu, requesting her assistance for the war games. Meanwhile, Belle concludes his training with Ice and Tiona at dusk near the city walls. In her quarters, Freya muses about Apollo and the war games' outcome. Belle regrouped with Hestia, her newly beefed up Familia, and Ryu, all fired up for the war games. Riding in a rickety wagon crammed with loud-ass beastmen, they hyped Belle up, swearing they'd cheer him on. Just as things couldn't get weirder, Sir bolted out of nowhere, shoving a necklace with some shiny green jewel into Belle's hand. She called it a good luck charm from some adventurer and promised him a hot meal once the crap show was over. The night before the war games, Apollo's Familia bunkered down in their castle, ready to throw down. Cassandra, as usual, spouted some creepy prophecy about doom and gloom. Daphne brushed it off like usual, thinking it was just more Cassandra crap. After the gates slammed shut, some poor bastard named Luan barely made it in before being told to lug a massive box that looked sketchy as hell. Cassandra's freaky dreams screamed Trojan horse, but no one gave a damn. By dawn, the guild's hype machine was in full swing. Ibri from the Ganesha Familia played the MC role, bellowing announcements as gods and their crews swarmed to Babel Tower for front row seats. Hermes lit up his magic like a showman, broadcasting the chaos to the whole damn city. At noon, all hell broke loose. Ryu launched the first strike, swinging 2 Krozo-made magical swords like a badass. Hyacinthos freaked and sent half his army outside to deal with her. The swords? Yeah, they shattered after one use. Left with just her wooden sword, Ryu still managed to hold her ground, kicking Apollo Familia ass left and right. Ryu's a total beast, even with just a wooden sword.
Swords may break, but Ryu's still throwing hands.
While Ryu kept the fight messy outside, Mikoto snuck into the castle. Arrows rained down like crazy, but she wasn't backing off. Chanting her magic spell, Mikoto unleashed Futsu no Mitama, locking down a bunch of Apollo Familia idiots. Meanwhile, Ryu smacked down an elf named Lissos, who hated her guts over some village-burning magical weapons drama. The stage was set. The Hestia Familia wasn't just fighting for pride. They were fighting to shove Apollo's smug face into the dirt, and they weren't planning on losing. As the spectators watching the war games progress, Hermes comments to ASFI that the way that the Apollo Familia is moving is fast. Fast in such a way that someone is feeding them intel on everything. Hermes also notes that the intel can also be virulent and have a detrimental effect as well. Just then, Luan opens the gate to the castle, allowing Belle and Welf to enter. It turns out that Luan was really Lily in disguise. The real Luan was captured and held in a warehouse that Mioch oversaw. Back to the siege, Daphnis is informed about the situation, while Belle and Welf head to their location. Daphnis orders her mages to attack the two, but Welf counterattacks with Will-O-Wisp. This allows Belle to pass by, and Welf to challenge Daphnis to a one-on-one match. In the throne room, Hyacinthos is exasperated by this turn of events. Although Cassandra begs Hyacinthos to flee, smacks her away. Hyacinthos then orders his men to take care of Belle fast when he arrives, but not kill him, as he'll do that honor. Hestia's Familia members and ally all continue fighting the Apollo Familia members. Just Belle fires off a firebolt below the throne room that was empowered by his Argonaut. The throne room and the roof above it destroyed. Belle goes on the offensive against Hyacinthos and breaks his sword in the process. About to give the finishing blow, Cassandra grabs Belle, allowing Hyacinthos to cast the spell Arrow Zephyros. Lily appears out of nowhere and tackles Cassandra off of Belle, who then manages to dodge the spell, but it continues to home in on him. At Hyacinthos' command, the spell explodes, however. All it does is wound, and Belle does not incapacitate him. In a fit of rage, Hyacinthos draws a short sword and uses it to attack Belle. On the other hand, Belle counters the attack and coasts him with a single punch. Ibri then proclaims the Hestia Familia as the winners, and those who supported them rejoice. Apollo flabbergasted by this turn of events, Hestia, the winner of the war game, gives her victory demands, those being that his Familia disband, his mansion is confiscated, and he's banished from Orario forever. After the battle, Belle regroups with his allies and thanks them all for their hard work. Sometime after the war games, Hestia and her Familia gather at their new home. Hestia also changes the Familia logo to a flame and a bell in honor of Belle. Lily had gone to her old familia to say her goodbyes to Soma, who had simply told her to take care. Outside the compound, Hestia had been waiting for Lily to return, and once she did, they headed back to their new home. The Hestia familia had been unpacking and welcomed Lily back like it was no big deal. A toast had been held to celebrate Belle reaching rank 3, and it had been decided that he would be the familia commander too. Belle had given a humble speech and raised his glass. After a brief discussion about Apollo's weird tastes in his old manor, it had been revealed that Goibniu had built the place. On top of that, Hestia had dropped a bombshell. She had had him make a fancy cypress bathhouse for them. Mikoto hadn't wasted any time and had dived in, loving every second of it. Welf had checked out the blacksmithing station and had been impressed with how it had been set up. A cypress bathhouse. Hestia's got some serious style.
Belle's rank 3, and now he's the commander. No more slacking off.
As Hestia, Belle, and Lily had talked about how to fix up the mansion, they had spotted some familiar faces, Cassandra and Daphnis from Apollo's old crew, hanging out by the gate. It turned out that Cassandra had lost her pillow, and her oneiromancy had said it would be there. Belle had found it and had handed it over. They had thanked him, saying they would be back the next day. They were coming back because the Hestia Familia was recruiting new members. The next day, the Familia had held their recruitment drive. A bunch of people had shown up hoping to join. Lily had taken advantage of the crowd, screening recruits, and especially watching out for any women who might catch Belle's eye. Mikoto had been in a rush, flustered because she had taken too long in the bath. She had found a box with Hestia's handwriting that had said, "Do not touch" on it. Later, Hestia had gotten the crowd hyped up with chants, but things had gotten a little weird. She had even asked if everyone thought Belle was cute. After that, Mikoto had crashed the party by revealing the Familia's 200 million Valley's debt. The recruits had gotten scared off and had bailed. The debt had been tied to Hephaestus, who had forged Belle's Hestia's knife, and Belle had been stunned. That night, the Familia, minus Belle who had been in bed, had had a serious talk about the debt. Since all of Apollo's cash had been spent on the bathhouse and blacksmith station, they had decided to grind through quests in the dungeon to pay it off. But Hestia had been like, "Screw that. I'm taking all the debt on myself," and had shut the conversation down. Later, Belle had woken up and had found Welf in his room. They had headed to the bath, and while they had been in there, Hestia had overheard their chat. She had been soon joined by Lily and Mikoto, and they had started planning to spy on the guys while they bathed, as she had been eavesdropping on another conversation between Belle and Welf, where Belle had talked about how thankful he was to Hestia and the Familia. Hestia had gotten all sneaky and had tried to sneak into the bathing area, but Lily and Mikoto had stopped her before she could pull it off. That night, Hestia had let the Familia pitch in to help pay off her debt to Hephaestus. After that, they had all kicked back and celebrated. It was nighttime in the city, and Ishtar had let her Familia loose in the pleasure district to satisfy the dirty desires of Orario's residents. Back at the Hestia mansion, Mikoto had acted like she was heading to bed, but had slipped out secretly to hit the city. Belle, Welf, and Lily had followed her without her knowing. They'd watched as Mikoto met up with Chigusa and headed into the red light district. The two had gotten surrounded by a bunch of sleazy guys, and Welf and Lily had rushed in to save them. But in the chaos, they'd left Belle behind with a prostitute, and he'd gotten caught up in a crowd that dragged him into a brothel. Mikoto sneaks out, and Belle gets stuck in a brothel? What is this?
Welf and Lily play the heroes, but Belle's the one who gets a full experience.
With the guys out of the way, Mikoto and Chigusa had thanked Welf and Lily for saving them. Mikoto had then explained that they were in that part of town because someone from their homeland might be working there. As they were about to leave, Welf and Lily had realized Belle was missing. Belle had somehow managed to escape the clutches of some prostitutes, only to wander aimlessly around the district. While he was lost, Belle had spotted a Renard who had vanished as soon as he saw her. Belle had been confused, then Hermes had popped up, handing him a vial of aphrodisiac to keep their meeting secret. Chasing after Hermes to return the vial, Belle had run into Aisha, a prostitute who had immediately taken advantage of him and kept the other women away. She dragged him to the Ishtar Familia's base, where he found out Ishtar herself was there. This had brought back a flashback of Aina warning Belle about the Ishtar Familia. In a separate room, Belle had been with Aisha and the other prostitutes. They had told him how Amazonians capture men to do whatever they want with them. Just when things couldn't get worse, Phryne had shown up, hoping to get a taste of Belle. The other Amazonians had rejected that, but when they'd seen Belle trying to leave, they'd made a bet. Whoever caught Belle first would get him for the night. Belle had escaped the base, but rumors about his capture spread like wildfire. Belle had hidden in a Far Eastern-style brothel, where he had bumped into the Renard he'd seen earlier. Her name was Haruhime. She'd tried to satisfy him, but had fainted when she'd seen his collarbone. When she'd woken up, Haruhime had realized Belle wasn't a customer and learned about his situation. In exchange for leading him out of the pleasure district through a secret passage, she had asked Belle to talk with her until dawn. Belle had agreed, and they'd spent the night chatting. He'd shared why he wanted to be an adventurer, and Haruhime had opened up about her past from the Far East. They'd bonded over their shared love for the dungeon oratoria. Back at Ishtar's base, Hermes had delivered a package to Ishtar. Their conversation had shifted to Freya, someone Ishtar was itching to take down. Meanwhile, Belle and Haruhime had continued talking, and Haruhime had confessed how she wished a hero would come and free her from her life. But she didn't think that was possible since she was stuck being a prostitute. As dawn broke, Haruhime had led Belle down a secret path toward Daedalus Street. After a heartfelt goodbye, Belle had felt terrible for her, knowing he couldn't do anything to help. Ishtar, meanwhile, had been planning on capturing Belle to mess with Freya.
Back at the Hestia Familia base, Belle got a serious dressing down from Hestia for spending the whole damn night in the pleasure district. Makoto tried to step in and take the blame, but Belle still got stuck doing a bunch of chores for the neighbors. While he was stuck doing the crap work, Belle overheard some kids playing hero, princess, and monster. The kids reminded him of Haruhime and her stupid dream of being rescued by a hero. To take responsibility for everything that went down in the pleasure district, the rest of the Hestia Familia pitched in to help Belle with the chores. Makoto also admitted that the friend she'd been looking for in the district was a Renard. Belle remembered Haruhime was a Renard too and asked if she was the one Makoto had been searching for. Makoto confirmed it. Lily then jumped in, saying she knew Belle was thinking about rescuing Haruhime, but she shot that idea down fast. Belle had just barely gotten out of the war games and didn't need to jump into another mess. Welf and Makoto backed Lily up, agreeing that it was better to let it go. Meanwhile, Hermes was bugging Mia to tell Freya that Ishtar had taken an interest in Belle. Seer overheard, and though she stayed calm, pushed Hermes to explain why Belle had become Ishtar's new obsession. Hermes visited the guild and asked Aina about the Ishtar Familia. Aina told him they were big in both money and dungeon runs, and then dropped some dirt about Phryne and Aisha. When Hermes asked about a Renard, Aina had nothing useful, but she did mention a shady incident involving the Ishtar Familia. Later, Belle stopped by a bookstore and read up on heroic tales. That night in the pleasure district, Aisha gave Haruhime some candies she'd bought from a merchant in the Far East. Just as Haruhime was about to say something, Mikoto showed up and tried to talk to her, but Haruhime pretended she didn't know Mikoto at all.
Sir's keeping it cool while Hermes spills the tea on Ishtar.
Aisha's got Far East candy, while Hermes is busy digging up dirt. The next day, Belle found out from Mikoto that Haruhime had rejected her. Mikoto opened up about her past with her old familia and Haruhime. Things had been good until Haruhime got sold off to a slave trader. Belle got all emotional and made up his mind to rescue Haruhime, just like she was rescued from her mansion back in the day. Out of nowhere, Hermes popped up to check on Belle, asking him about the pleasure district. At the Hostess of Fertility, Hermes got the rundown on Haruhime's situation and echoed what Lily had said about messing with the Ishtar Familia. But then he suggested they gather the cash to buy Haruhime. He guessed it would cost around 3 million valis. Mikoto and Belle, thinking they could pull it off, asked about the person they wanted to buy. When Hermes said her name was Haruhime and that she was a Renard, Belle got the chills. Hermes then admitted that the package he delivered to Ishtar was a killing stone and left them to figure things out. Later that night, at the Ishtar Familia base, Ishtar ordered her Familia to go after Belle. She was also looking forward to the full moon and the killing stone ritual, planning to take down the Freya Familia. The next day, the Hestia Familia was out in the dungeon, exploring and having a blast, especially Mikoto and Belle. But what they didn't know was that the Ishtar Familia was ahead of them, planning to kidnap Belle. With a little help from a cloaked figure, Aisha got an enchantment cast on her. Meanwhile, Belle's group had their hands full with a bunch of Liger Fangs. In the chaos, Aisha grabbed Belle, and the two ended up fighting, but it was clear Belle didn't stand a chance and got overpowered in no time. Mikoto tried to save Belle, but she was defeated by Aisha, and Belle was also captured. It was revealed that Haruhime was the one who enchanted Aisha. Belle woke up in a stone room filled with prison items in the Ishtar Familia base. He was chained to a wall and was approached by Phryne. To stop Phryne from doing anything to Belle, Aisha ordered the other Ishtar Familia members to go after Phryne. Meanwhile, Mikoto woke up in her cell and Haruhime gave her the keys to escape before leaving. Back to Belle, Phryne left him alone for a while to prepare what she planned to do. Haruhime entered the room and freed Belle. Belle thanked her and hugged her, which made Haruhime happy. The Ishtar Familia continued searching for Belle. Makoto tried to find Belle using magic, but it didn't work. In Phryne's private room, Phryne found out Belle had escaped and yelled Haruhime's name in anger. Elsewhere, Belle and Haruhime walked through a secret tunnel to escape the base. Belle thanked Haruhime and found out Mikoto was okay because she had been given the keys to her cell. Belle worried that Haruhime would be punished for helping him, but Haruhime said she was ready for whatever happened. As Mikoto tried not to be noticed by the Ishtar Familia, she found a book about the killing stone ritual. Although Haruhime had accepted her fate and believed that leniency would be granted toward her, Belle still insisted on rescuing her, as both he and Mikoto wanted to. Hearing this made Haruhime feel happy and she started to cry. Outside, as Ishtar Familia members searched the streets for Belle, a cat beastman cursed having to look for him. At Hestia's mansion, Takamika Zuchi and his familia were informed of the circumstances surrounding Mikoto and Belle's disappearance. In the discussion, they considered many possibilities as to why the Ishtar Familia would have kidnapped Belle and Mikoto. The topic of the killing stone came up, and Takamika Zuchi revealed that it was a dark magic ritual that sealed sealed away the soul of a Renard. This allowed the user to wield Renard magic called Yujutsu. Furthermore, once the killing stone was shattered, the soul inside it could never be restored. Since a full moon was needed to complete the ritual, it just so happened that it was that very night.
Haruhime's crying tears of relief, but Belle's out here being the hero.
Takamikazuchi dropping knowledge bombs while the Ishtar Familia is still searching the streets. Outside on the streets of Orario, just before Belle and Haruhime separated, Mikoto reunited with the two of them. Mikoto immediately brought up the killing stone and asked if Haruhime knew about it. Haruhime didn't answer but acted as though she was aware of it. Just then, Aisha appeared and took Haruhime from the group, revealing that the Ishtar Familia's goal was to start a war with the Freya Familia. To gain the power needed for such a feat, they would have to use the rank-boosting magic that Haruhime could harness from the killing stone. Aisha vowed to take Haruhime, informing the determined Belle that this would start a war with the Ishtar Familia. Before the other Ishtar Familia members arrived, Aisha shared some of Haruhime's backstory. Mikoto and Belle managed to escape from the Ishtar Familia once again and take a break in an alley. Belle feels guilty for leaving Haruhime behind and wonders if saving her would start a war with the Ishtar Familia. Hestia, her familia, and Takamikazuchi try to get into the pleasure district, but they're stopped by two Amazonian guards. Uka and Chigusa arrive to confirm that all the other entrances are blocked too. At the Ishtar Familia base, Franny scolds her subordinates for letting Belle escape. Aisha points out that Franny is being hypocritical, since Belle got away because of her. Samira, an Amazonian, suggests they'll catch Belle after the ritual and believes Belle and Mikoto don't have the power to stop them. While Mikoto checks out the area, Belle continues to feel bad about Haruhime's belief in heroes. His frustration activates his Argonaut skill. When Mikoto returns, Belle tells her he's determined to save Haruhime no matter what. Mikoto is touched and agrees to help him. The two make a plan to rescue Haruhime. Belle, using the power of Argonaut, charges into the Ishtar Familia base, casting Firebolt on all the guards. With the chaos, Hestia and her group slip past the entrance to the pleasure district. Elsewhere, Mikoto interrogates a guard and learns that Haruhime is in the Hanging Gardens. When news of Belle reaches Haruhime, Franny orders Samira to move Haruhime to the Hanging Gardens. Back at the base, Belle is still fighting through the Ishtar Familia. Franny confronts him, and they briefly clash. Aisha and many guards arrive, but Ishtar stops them and orders them to the ritual site. Belle and Ishtar talk about her plan to use the killing stone to rank up her familia and take down the Freya Familia. Afterward, Belle is restrained by Tammuz, and Ishtar tries to use her divine charm on him. Freya, now aware of Ishtar's plan, prepares for war with the Ishtar Familia, but the charm doesn't work on Belle because of his Liaris freeze skill. Belle slips away from the guard holding him and escapes, with the guard chasing after him.
Belle's powering up like a boss, while Mikoto's handling the info gathering.
Ishtar's charm backfired big time. Belle's Liaris freeze is the ultimate counter. Mikoto arrives at the Hanging Gardens and defeats two guards protecting Haruhime. The two talk until Lena throws a chakram, slicing Mikoto's shoulder, causing her to fall from the bridge. As she falls, Mikoto fires a red flare to signal her failure. Belle refuses to give up when he sees this, and Mikoto climbs back up to the Hanging Gardens. Before the ritual begins, Mikoto returns and defeats a couple more guards. Samira challenges her to a one-on-one fight, and Mikoto accepts, but is easily overpowered by the stronger Amazonian. Franny soon learns that Belle has escaped from Ishtar and calls him out. Mikoto gets up, ready to fight again, but the ritual is about to start. A flashback shows Takamikazuchi advising Mikoto when she was younger, telling her to embrace the true way of a ninja by using dirty tactics. Following his advice, Mikoto grabs Samira and casts a magical discharge spell, causing a big explosion that takes out Samira and some guards. Weakened from using the spell, Mikoto falls and calls out to Belle to save Haruhime. Belle arrives and rushes toward her. To stop Belle, Franny orders Sherei to kill Haruhime, but Belle stops Sherei and destroys the killing stone in the process. The war kicked off when the Freya Familia attacked the pleasure district, led by Freya herself, who was hell-bent on taking down Ishtar. Even though the killing stone was destroyed, Haruhime still refused to be rescued because of her past as a prostitute. Belle didn't give a damn about that, though. He didn't care that prostitutes were seen as the downfall of heroes. He just wanted to save her. Tired of the endless back and forth between Belle and Haruhime, Franny decided to step in, demanding that Haruhime use her magic on her. But instead of using her Uchide no Kozuchi on Franny, Haruhime used it on Belle. Franny, furious, knocked Haruhime out cold, and Belle found himself going toe-to-toe with the ugly Amazonian. Meanwhile, Aisha told her fellow Amazonians to get the hell out of there, and Attar broke away from the Gulliver brothers to find and heal Mikoto, who was wounded. Back at the Ishtar Familia base, Hestia's group was investigating when they were ambushed by a single Amazonian guard who wiped the floor with them. Just when things looked bad, the Freya Familia's vice captain, Alan, showed up and rescued them, only to trash talk Welf before heading off. Hestia realized Freya was here, and the battle between Belle and Franny raged on. Franny knocked Belle back, sending one of his weapons flying. To fight back, Belle grabbed a broad sword and sliced Franny's face. Enraged, Franny slammed the ground so hard it destroyed most of the area. Belle, using her weight against her, pulled off a counterattack, slamming her down through the bridge. As Belle walked toward Haruhime, Aisha blocked his path. Franny survived her fall and was confronted by Otar, who knocked her out cold after a brief exchange.
Belle's determination to save Haruhime, despite everything, everything is honestly so inspiring.
Yeah, he's not letting anyone's opinions stop him. He's got his heart set on rescuing her, no matter the cost. Mikoto, now healed, was found and helped by Hestia's group. Once she was with them, she told them Belle was at the Hanging Gardens. Meanwhile, the fight between Belle and Aisha heated up when the Uchid no Kazuchi's power ran out. As Ishtar tried to escape, she ran into Freya, who wasn't letting her go that easy. Meanwhile, Hermes and Aesfi watched the Pleasure District burn. Aesfi asked if this was part of Hermes' plan, but he just shrugged it off, saying all he did was light the spark. Back to Belle versus Aisha, the two clashed, with Aisha using her Hell Kaios magic, but Belle used his Argonaut skill to cancel it out. Their powers collided, destroying both their weapons. Refusing to give up, Belle closed the distance and blasted Aisha with a firebolt at point-blank range, taking her down. Finally, Freya confronted Ishtar again. With a single slap, she sent Ishtar back to the heavens. When Ishtar was defeated, the slave collar around Haruhime's neck disintegrated, setting her free for good. Just then, Hestia and the group arrived, with Mikoto especially thrilled that Belle had saved Haruhime. Ares and his familia tried to attack Orario, but it didn't take long before they got their asses handed to them by Gareth Landrock of the Loki familia. Meanwhile, back at the Hestia familia mansion, Aisha dumped Haruhime like some lost puppy. Later that day, Belle and Hermes were talking about how Haruhime had officially joined the Hestia familia at some crappy pub. But then the conversation shifted and Hermes dropped some heavy news. He told Belle about the 3 legendary quests the world was dying for a real hero to complete. The first 2 were to take down the Behemoth and the Leviathan, done and dusted by the Zeus and Hera familias. But those 2 familia got wiped out by the 3rd quest. Belle thought the Black Dragon was just some bullshit myth, but Hermes confirmed it was very much real, and it's ready to wreck shit. Back in Ares' camp, his vice captain, Marius, gave him the latest update, and Ares flipped the hell out. Losing like this was pissing him off big time. Meanwhile, at the Hestia Familia mansion, Haruhime was dressed up in a maid outfit, hanging up some laundry. Belle tried to be all chivalrous and help her out, but of course, that caused a damn scene. Hestia walked in and put her foot down, making a rule that no boy and girl in the Familia could touch each other anymore. Obviously, this sparked a shitstorm and everyone was pissed. Hestia softened the rule later, clarifying that no inappropriate stuff was allowed between the male and female members. When she asked Belle if a goddess asked him out, what would he say? Belle shot back that he'd reject her. Why? Because he thought goddesses were way too divine for a guy like him. This hit Hestia in the feels so hard she got emotional and stormed off. Belle, feeling like a total idiot, chased after her. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, all kinds of merchants were selling crap to the battered Ares Familia soldiers. Ares, determined to flip the tables, announced he was heading to Orario to capture a god and hold them hostage. His vice captain begged him to reconsider, but Ares didn't give a damn and took off anyway. Back in the streets of Orario, Belle ran into Miak and Hephaestus. Before he asked them about Hestia, he had to know if they'd ever fallen in love with a mortal. They both admitted they had, but not in the way he was talking about. Being gods, their love wasn't the same as a mortal's. They told Belle to respect his goddess, but not to be afraid of his feelings for her. Elsewhere, Hestia was stuck helping out the potato lady, picking potatoes from her garden outside of Orario. But as luck would have it, she ran right into Ares, Marius, and a bunch of his men who kidnapped her and hauled her off to their base. Belle, after parting ways with Miak and Hephaestus, ran into Ice. She told him Hestia had been kidnapped, and with the enemy splitting into 3 separate groups, figuring out which one had Hestia was going to be a hell of a challenge. Hermes stepped in, offering Asfi's help to find her. With Asfi's help, Ice and Belle finally located Hestia, but of course, nothing ever goes smoothly. While they were rescuing her, Belle and Hestia got knocked off a damn cliff and fell into a raging stream. Ice jumped in after them, ready to kick some ass if it meant saving her friend. Hestia slowly woke up in the guest room bed of the village mayor, her head spinning from the events that had just unfolded. Belle sat by her side looking concerned. He informed her that Ys had saved them and was out searching for any remnants of the Ares Familia. Just then, the village mayor, Calm, entered the room with his daughter Lena. Hestia, still groggy, thanked Calm for his kindness, though she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about him. The mayor was polite but hesitated slightly, like he was holding something back. Ys returned later that day, having failed to track down ASFI, or the Ares Familia. She only found evidence of a battle, nothing more. Meanwhile, back at the mayor's house, Calm stared at a certain emblem and had a coughing fit. Lena rushed to his side, helping him to bed, and the room fell silent. The next day, the village buzzed with activity as preparations for the harvest festival kicked off. In gratitude for their hospitality, Hestia had Belle help the villagers with the setup. As Belle was going about his tasks, he ran into Ice, now dressed in provincial clothing. After helping a male villager, Belle wandered to a small shrine, noticing a single scale from the Black Dragon inside. A villager explained that there were 10 such scales in the village, each one a symbol of the dragon's protection. Because of these scales, monsters stayed far away from the village, and the villagers revered the Black Dragon for keeping them safe. Belle commented to Ice, who was eyeing the scale with obvious disdain, that the Black Dragon was almost like a god. Ice, however, shot down that idea, and they both made their way back to the mayor's home.
I love how the Black Dragon scales protect the village, like a hidden legend. It really adds depth to the story.
Yeah, but Ice's reaction was interesting. Guess she doesn't see the dragon as a god. Makes me wonder wonder if there's more to the dragon story. Later, that evening, Bell found himself in the mayor's room having a private talk with Cam. The mayor revealed an emblem from his former familia and shared his tragic past. He spoke of the goddess he loved, who had sacrificed her life on the lower world to save him. After the dissolution of his familia, Cam had settled in the village, adopting his daughter Lena. His final piece of advice to Bell was simple yet profound. Always cherish your goddess and protect her. Meanwhile, Hestia had fully recovered from her illness, but she couldn't resist the temptation to feign weakness a little longer to keep Bell's undivided attention. Just then, Ice entered the room with dinner, and Hestia saw an opportunity to probe her rival. She asked Ice what she thought of Bell, and though Ice seemed confused by the question, Hestia took it as a win when Ice described Bell as like a rabbit. That was enough to convince her that Ice didn't have any romantic feelings for Bell. The Harvest Festival kicked off later that day, and the trio, Bell, Ice, and Hestia, attended. As the harvest dance began, a villager explained the tradition. An unmarried man who asked a woman to dance, Hero was confessing his love, and if she accepted, they became a couple. Hestia was practically glowing with excitement, urging Bell to ask her to dance. But just as they were about to enjoy the moment, Lena rushed in to deliver heartbreaking news. Her father, Cam, was dying. The group quickly gathered in his room, where Cam confessed that Hestia reminded him of Bridget, the goddess he had loved and lost. He asked if he'd see Bridget again in the afterlife, and Hestia reassured him, saying that Bridget was obsessive enough to follow him even there. Cam found comfort in this and admitted he was both eager and scared to see her again. In an unexpected gesture, Hestia removed her hair ties, and pretending to be Bridget, comforted him as he passed away peacefully. Outside, Bell and Hestia sat in silence, talking about death, rebirth, and the possibility of love between mortals and deities. As Hestia reassured him that she would always be by his side even after death, Bell, choked with emotion, told her he wanted to stay with her forever. The next day, Bell, Hestia, and Ice left the village behind, heading back to Orario. But somewhere deep in the dungeon, something new was stirring. A Vuivre had just been born. Gran and his crew were chasing the dragon girl through the woods, her naked ass scrambling like prey to avoid them. She trips, face plants into the dirt, and then notices a damn swirling flame behind her. Bell Cornell shows up, shocked as hell that the monster's actually crying. Then, a fiery bird swoops in and Bell barely kills it before it fries him alive. Gran and his crew catch up, just brushing past Bell and the girl, not giving a single damn about Bell's request for a potion to heal her burns. They couldn't care less. Bell's group catches up soon after, ripping into him for being an idiot and going off alone on the 19th floor. They're all completely lost about the dragon girl, and Bell stays cool, telling them he'll explain once they hit the 18th floor. Then, in a stupid move, the girl trips again, her hood falls back, and boom, her face is out. Bell's crew loses their damn minds, weapons out, ready to take her down like a rabid dog. Bell steps in front of her, blocking their every move. Then, Ditcheru the dragon girl speaks, and the whole party freaks the hell out. Bell explains the whole mess, begging them to spare her. They finally, reluctantly, agree to help him take her to the surface.
Bell's got a dragon girl to save, and the team's not exactly thrilled about it.
The dragon girl opens her mouth, and the whole party loses it. Oranos eventually learns of these events as Bell and his group make it to the surface. Hestia agrees to let the girl stay for now and asks her what her name is. She doesn't have a name, so Hestia calls Bell to name her. After some consideration, they eventually decide on the name Vina. Hestia then orders them to find out if there are any others like her and to figure out if anything strange is going on in the dungeon. Lily goes into a tavern to search for answers. Lulun, the mudhound, sits down next to Lily and mentions that they know a thing or two, but warns her not to get her hopes up, prompting Lily to pay their tab for the information. Luluni tells her that the word on the street is that disembodied voices can sometimes be heard bouncing off the dungeon walls, some talking all at once and others singing, even when no adventurers are present. Afterward, Lily storms out of the tavern, thinking she's finally gotten some peace, but of course, Lulun's on her ass, following her like a damn ghost. Lily huffs, rolling her eyes, but doesn't say a word. She's too tired for this crap. Over at the tavern, Haruhime and Bell are trying to teach Vina how to not be a total disaster, but the girl's just too damn excited. She gets all rough and scratches Bell's arm with her claws like she's some wild animal. Bell, being the good guy, tries not to make a scene, but Vina starts bawling like she just tore his arm off. Bell calms her down quick, telling her it's fine. But while he's hugging her, his eyes catch something weird. A white owl with two damn different colored eyes, watching them like it's waiting for a sign or some shit. Later, Lily's still acting like a stone cold bitch, throwing dagger looks at Vina every chance she gets. She drags Welf aside and starts going off about how the gods are keeping them in the dark about the dungeon, and how by bringing the dragon girl into the fold, they've stuck themselves in some messed up shit. Welf's kinda over her paranoia, but can't deny there's something off about the whole situation. That night, Weenie opens up to Bell, telling him about her lonely ass dreams. She talks about being a dragon, killing people, only to get killed by people like him. Bell's caught off guard, but before he can process it, the air feels heavier, like something's about to snap. Meanwhile, Hermes is sniffing around shady shit again, finding smugglers dealing with human-like monsters. Weena's spilling her tragic dragon dreams, and Bell's just trying to keep up. This is getting deep.
While Belle's dealing with dragon nightmares, Hermes is out there sniffing out the dark side of things.
The smugglers are discussing their loss of the Vuivre in their hideout, and Dix orders Gran and the others to look around for all the adventurers in Rivera to try and figure out where she could possibly be. Ikilos, who is working with them out of boredom, boredom, assists Dix in sniffing out her location as they begin their search for Weena. Hestia orders the gang to head down to the 19th floor of the dungeon, close to where Weena was found, to search for any bloody clues. As they're making their way through, they bump into Aisha, who's on her way to visit Haruhime. She grins and suggests she could join them as a bodyguard, looking all seductive-like. Ryu's not having any of it though. She steps in, shoving the two apart, and tells Aisha straight up that such trashy behavior won't fly in this group. Aisha, the cheeky bitch, snaps back and asks if Ryu's implying that Belle is her target. Ryu, with a sharp glare, tells her not to get the wrong bloody idea and makes it clear that Belle's already tied up with Seer. The two start trading insults, like a bunch of bloody idiots, until Ryu has had enough. Finally, she just sighs and agrees to go with Aisha, not wanting any of this nonsense messing with Belle's chastity, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. After the first fight, Belle and Welf secretly bailed on Aisha, Ryu, and Lily and slipped off into the dungeon on their own. When they reached the spot where Belle first found Weena, Welf started noticing the terrain looked a bit off. Belle just shrugged it off, telling him they were in the large tree labyrinth, a place he'd read about in the guild's reports. Welf didn't think much of it, but as they moved along, a hooded figure popped out of nowhere. They tried to keep walking, but the bloody thing stops them cold, giving them the creeps. She starts going on about whether they're the ones who've been abducting her kin, or if they're the bastards Fells had talked about. Belle and Welf just look at each other like a couple of idiots, having no clue what she's on about. She keeps jabbering about whether they think they can coexist, throwing them even further into confusion. Then she goes on about how she wants to feel the sun on her skin again, and that she senses something off about them. She says she has high hopes for them before vanishing into thin air, leaving nothing but a bunch of feathers behind. The whole thing was bloody strange. As Belle and Welf kept moving, they were spotted by Gran and Dix, a couple of arseholes who always seemed to pop up just when things couldn't get worse. They all return back to the surface, where they part with Aisha and Ryu. Lily asks what happened and why they had been acting so weird since returning from the 19th floor. Welf says he would rather talk to Hestia about it first, and Belle says he would like some time alone. While Belle is by himself, Ikelos suddenly calls out to him. Belle's wondering what the hell this guy wants, but Ikelos cuts to the chase, straight up asking him what he knows about a certain Vuif. Before Belle can even answer, Hermes strolls in like he owns the place and tells Belle to piss off, saying he and Ikelos have some business to discuss. Later, Hermes is grilling Ikelos, demanding to know why his familia is tangled up in the black market and why he's got shady connections with a group called Evilus. He lays into him, making sure to point out that monsters have been smuggled out of Arario's walls, ready to stir up some bloody chaos. Ikelos just laughs like a bloody idiot, brushing it all off and blaming his underlings for the mess. Afterward, Welf updates Hestia on what they found, but Lily insists it's time to free Weena. Just as they talk about it, Wendy overhears and bolts, running off like a damn loner. While she's on the streets, a crate suddenly slides toward a little girl, almost smashing her. But Wunya partially transforms into a dragon and saves her. Unfortunately, her dragon form freaks everyone out, causing a panic. The little girl is terrified, and the adventurers quickly unsheath their swords, ready for a fight. Despite Welf warning him about the consequences, Belle tries to step in, but Lily beats him to it, telling everyone to head to the abandoned church for safety. The guild faces pressure from worried citizens because a monster has appeared in the city. Royman calls Aina to his office to give Belle a secret mission. The mission is to go to the dangerous 20th floor with the dragon girl. Belle asks if Weena can join them. At first, she's unsure, but she decides to go despite her fear. As the Hestia Familia heads into the dungeon, Hestia follows a letter's instructions and meets Fells, who leads her to Oranos. On the 20th floor, the Hestia Familia gets ambushed by monsters. Mikoto notices that they are targeting Weena. They reach their destination, where they hear a song. Following the sound, they find a hidden cave. Suddenly, Lead and his group attack them, but they didn't want to hurt them. They just tested if they would abandon Weena when things got tough. Afterward, the Xenos welcome them to their village. Uranus tells Hestia that the guild has been helping monsters, just like Belle and the others, and explains that her familia gives hope for monsters and humans to coexist. Hestia and Uranus continue to discuss while the Xenos host a party for Weena, Belle, and the Hestia Familia. After being asked, Uranus also reveals to Hestia that one other person knows about Weena and the Xenos, Ganesha. Meanwhile, Dix Perdix and the Ichelos Familia worry about the possibility of the guild discovering their illegal smuggling business as they continue trying to keep a close watch on the Hestia Familia. Fells shows up out of nowhere at the Xenos' village, catching Belle off guard. Fells casually explains that he's the point of contact between Uranus and the Xenos, and that he's been keeping an eye on both Belle and Weena. When Belle asks if he's human, Fells just drops the bombshell. He's not really human anymore, or at least he used to be. He pulls back his hood, revealing he's a bloody Spartoi monster. And that's not all. Turns out he's also the Sage, the creator of the Philosopher's Stone. While the Xenos talk about their dreams and hopes for the future, Uranus fills in Hestia about the Xenos' true origins, reincarnated souls of monsters who've been killed over and over again throughout history. As Belle and the gang start gearing up to leave, Lid munches down on a magic stone and drops a grim bit of advice. Monsters attack them just like any human, since he's a hybrid of both monster and human. He warns them not to hesitate when fighting monsters, because if they do, it could cost them their bloody lives. Lid's dropping truth bombs about hybrids and monster fights. This is about to get real.
Fight without hesitation. hesitation, or it's game over. Lid's not holding back.
Weena, despite wanting to be with them, is forced to stay behind with the rest of the Xenos, while Hestia Familia heads back home. As the Xenos begin their journey, something catches Weena's attention. One of her kin is crying out for help. They rush toward the sound, but then, out of nowhere, Dix steps from the shadows like the arsehole he is, grinning like a bastard. He reveals that the siren's cries were just a bloody trap to lure the Xenos right where he wants them. The battle between the Xenos and the Achelos Familia keeps going, leading to Four's death and several Xenos being captured or killed. After the fight, some Achelos Familia members approach the injured Rania, thinking about hurting her. Rania spits acid at them, which melts their skin, but she is stabbed in the chest. She laughs, saying that her body belongs to her alone and that they cannot hurt her. She then pulls out a stone from her chest, saying it's for Gro to live on before she dies. As Bell heads out to figure out the mess with the Xenos, he's suddenly attacked by a monster. For a second, he's all over the place, wondering if he should even kill the thing, but then Lid's words come crashing into his mind. Don't be a bloody idiot and hesitate just because it's a Xenos. That's all he needed to hear. Bell slays the monster, shaking off any doubts, and keeps moving. He finally bumps into Ice. Meanwhile, Lid loses it with Gro, who just went and destroyed the bloody crystal they used to talk to Fells. Lid's confused as hell, but Gro is pissed, saying talking to Fells won't help a damn thing. He's all about getting revenge on the humans for what happened to Rainier and the others, and rescuing those who've been taken. Lid isn't having it, but Gro storms off with some of the Xenos, like a bloody loose cannon. Lid, Ray, and the others stay behind, but Lid's not about to let Gro run wild. He decides to follow the bastard and tells Arle to meet up with the others later. Back with Bell and Ace, Bell asks her what she'd do if a monster actually had a reason to live. Ice doesn't hesitate for a second, saying she wouldn't trust the bastard and would put it down right there. Before Bell can get another word in, alarms go off like hell, and an announcement blares that the guild's about to issue a mission. Turns out armed monsters have completely wrecked Rivera, and all adventurers are banned from entering the dungeon. The Ganesha Familia is set to lead the charge. Hestia gets a message saying they're to stay as backup, but Bell's gonna be part of the subjugation unit. Gross is questioning one of the individuals that Ranier had injected her venom into, asking where they are located. The individual directs him to a destination, but after Gro flies off, he mentions that he won't be able to pass through the door. The Ganesha Familia and Bell come across Gro and his group, but the Ganesha Familia are intercepted by Lid and his group, resulting in a clash. Bell gets a moment alone with Lid and asks if they truly attacked the town. Lid confirms his suspicions, but explains that they did so because of the hunters who took Wien in fear. He tells Bell to avoid getting involved with the monster matters, although Bell insists on finding a way to help before Ryu strikes Lid, believing him to be a threat to Bell. After Lid escapes, Ryu tells Bell to go back to the Ganesha Familia, but he states he plans to follow Lid. Ryu informs him that he is becoming linked to a criminal organization, Evilus, which she aims to dismantle. She asks him to return to the surface with her, as Seer has been deeply worried, but his silence makes it clear he won't. She gives him a pouch containing an item before leaving. While trying to catch up with Lid, Fells meets up with Bell and helps direct him to the proper location. When they arrive, they cannot locate the door until the item Ryu gave. Bell begins to glow, revealing itself as a key. Meanwhile, the rest of the Hestia Familia are sneaking around, trying to track down the smuggler's hideout. Lily leads the crew to the prison where Zanis is locked up. The bastard's got some connections, and they reckon he might know where the smugglers are hiding, thanks to his shady past selling monsters. Zanis, being the rat he is, gives them a tip, telling them to check out Daedalus Street. The Xenos party enters the smugglers' hideout and successfully frees their kin, though Weena is not present. Dix Perdix soon appears, bringing more members of the Achelos Familia to oppose the Xenos, effectively using the captured Xenos as bait to trap them, until Bell runs into the side with the Xenos. After a conversation between Fells and Dix about how he got a hold of Daedalus' man-made labyrinth, Knossos, it is revealed that Dix is a descendant of Daedalus' bloodline when he removes his goggles to reveal his red eyes, something all of Daedalus' descendants have. It is explained that the Achelos Familia's alliance with Evilus and the sale of the Xenos were motivated by the funds needed to complete Daedalus' legacy, Knossos. Dix then casts a curse, Fabader Daedalus, which stuns and disorients the Xenos, causing them to act erratically and even attack each other. Meanwhile, Arles approaches with the comrade she was sent to retrieve, Asterius. The intense struggle between the Xenos and the Achelos Familia begins to unfold. Bell and Dix continue their fierce fight, with Bell soon being struck by Dix's cursed spear, which slices deeply into the side of his face. Bell is left with an open wound that Dix explains cannot be healed by any form of magic or potion, no matter how powerful. The injury will remain with him, an unavoidable consequence of their battle. Meanwhile, Ilta and Shakti have captured nearly all of the Xenos outside Knossos. Just when it seems their task is almost complete, Arles and Asterius suddenly appear, disrupting the progress of the capture capture operation. Inside the labyrinth of Gnossos, Dix starts rambling on about the curse of the Daedalus bloodline. He explains that anyone born into this bloodline gets completely obsessed with finishing the labyrinth. It messes with their head, like brutal, non-stop headaches and eyes that feel like they're on fire. No matter how they feel about the labyrinth itself, the curse doesn't give a damn. Dix admits he used to go into the labyrinth just to hunt monsters and escape the constant pressure in his skull. But then, he ran into monsters that could talk, and that's when things got twisted. He found some sick satisfaction in hearing those monsters scream. It was the only thing that eased his pain, and that's when the obsession took hold. He started calling it his dream of beasts, and from then on, it was all he could think about. This addiction was so deep that even Ikilos later came to define it as his own twisted motivation. Back in the forest, Asterius has already cut down every member of the Ganesha familia and their allied forces, leaving Ryu as the only one still standing in defiance. However, even she will soon be defeated by Asterius' overwhelming power. After hearing a loud howl from Rhett, Asterius unexpectedly stands down and walks away, leaving Ryu to wonder why she was spared, unable to understand his motives.
Something's off here.
Ryu's left in the dark, wondering why she's the one spared. This doesn't add up. Meanwhile, Belle desperately tries to convince Dix that the Xenos should be spared, but Dix remains steadfast in believing their destruction is necessary. Dix takes Belle to a separate area, insinuating that Belle may have developed romantic feelings for the Vuit. Belle sees Weena tied up in this secluded space and pleading for his help. Standing behind Weena, Dix asks Belle what he thinks would happen if he were to rip the red stone out of her head. Belle charges forward to stop him, but Dix is faster and pulls the stone out before Belle can reach them. As a result, Weena immediately reverts to her monster form and begins attacking Belle. Despite Dix's taunting words, Belle refuses to strike her, firmly believing that she is not an enemy. As Weena slams her hand into Belle's shoulder, he does not move, instead telling her calmly that he will be fine. This reassurance causes Weena to pause and reflect on their shared moments, leading to her internal conflict as she hesitates to continue the attack. After Weena stops her assault on Belle, Dix resumes the fight, challenging Belle to explain why he continues to protect monsters like her. Amid the barrage of attacks, Belle briefly clears his mind and breaks Dix's spear with a focused strike. Belle passionately declares that it does not matter if someone is human or a monster. If they ask for help, that is all that matters to him. Despite his strong words, Dix still manages to overpower Belle, and just as Dix is about to land the final killing blow, he is unexpectedly struck in the back by Lid. Belle's words have struck a chord with Lid and the other Xenos, as they are now filled with renewed resolve, causing the Achelos Familia to lose ground in the battle. Having regained his strength, Belle stands and joins Lid in the fight against Dix. Together, they overpower him, with Belle landing a devastating blow that sends Dix crashing into the wall, leaving a large hole in the labyrinth's structure. The curse Dix had placed on Belle is now broken, but Dix still manages to rise to his feet, revealing that he has kept Vini's stone in his possession. He throws the stone behind him, sending it flying through the hole in the wall, nearly causing him to fall off a dangerous ledge. However, Belle and Lid manage to catch it in time. As they retrieve the stone, Dix casts an illusionary curse on Weena, before setting her free to cause chaos on the surface. With his plan still in motion, Dix escapes while Belle and Fels rush after Weena, soon joined by the other Xenos. On the surface, the Hestia Familia continues searching for the enemy hideout on Daedalus Street when Weena suddenly appears, her rampage in full swing. She nearly strikes Haruhime, but Belle intervenes at the last moment, saving her from the deadly attack. As Belle prepares to return the red stone to her head, the Loki Familia, with IEs at their forefront, stand atop a nearby building and throw a spear, piercing Wiener's shoulder. Panicked, Belle steps in front of Weena, positioning himself as a barrier between her and the Loki Familia, determined to protect her from further harm. Dix, bloodied and barely standing, stumbles through the labyrinth, desperate to escape, but his luck runs out when Asterius catches up to him. With one brutal swing of his axe, Dix's fate is sealed, and he's killed on the spot. Meanwhile, back on the surface, Belle is busy defending Weena from a group of adventurers who are out for blood. Belle declares that Weena is his prey, and with that, he starts chasing her through the city like a bloody madman. The Xenos are still on the run, and the Loki Familia is hot on their heels. But their hunt takes a turn when Asterius appears out of nowhere. With the sheer power of his axe, he paralyzes the entire Loki Familia, leaving them completely vulnerable. Ice Wallenstein tries to take him on, but even she struggles against the Minotaur's overwhelming strength. She manages to sever one of his arms, but just when it seems like the battle is turning in their favor, the Hermes Familia steps in, launching smoke bombs to cover the Xenos' escape. Elsewhere, Weena is gravely wounded by one of Dix's men. Just as he's about to finish her off, the Xenos strike, killing the bastard before he can get the job done. Belle rushes to Weena's side, desperately trying to revive her. Despite his best efforts, she slips away in his arms, leaving him shattered. Moved by Belle's determination, Fels makes the decision to bring Weena back to life. But even after she's revived, Belle gets an earful from Ina, who scolds him for his reckless actions that put so many innocent lives in danger. Belle gets Weena back with the classic hero move, save the day for sure.
But Ina's not letting him off easy. Looks like the lecture's just begun.
Because of his involvement with the poachers, Achelos has been cast out of the Labyrinth City. At the same time, Belle has lost all respect from the other adventurers and is confronted by Seer. The Loki Familia continues to hunt for the Xenos, Xenos, determined to wipe them out, and they are also planning to take down the Hermes Familia. They have Knossos' blueprints and are allied with Ryu Lion, offering him information about Evilus in exchange for his help. Meanwhile, Hephaestus, Miak, and Takamikazuchi have heard about the situation and are beginning to debate whether they should help the Xenos. Fels and the Hestia Familia are working on a plan to return the Xenos to a dungeon in Knossos. Still, the Loki Familia is also planning to counter them in hopes of stopping them from accomplishing their mission. Aina Tula feels uneasy after her last meeting with Bel, so she finds him. However, Hermes stops her and asks for a favor before she can track him down. Meanwhile, the Hestia Familia is putting its plan into action to escort all the Xenos out of the city safely. Bel is acting as a decoy for the Loki Familia, drawing their attention, especially that of Ice Wallenstein, who tries to follow him. As Bel tries to escape, Aisha Belka, Ryu Lion, and Naza Erisuis offer to help him. Aina arrives, but she cannot give Bel the bracelet Hermes had asked her to deliver before he leaves. With Naza and Ryu's help, Bel manages to escape from Ice. Lilyruka Arde uses her magic to slow down the Loki Familia's pursuit. Meanwhile, Yamato Mikoto, Fels, and Welf Krozo lead the Xenos to an unguarded entrance to the Knossos dungeon. During the chaos, Vina gets separated from the group and is confronted by Taiona Hiryute, who intends to kill her. Just in time, Bel saves Wina from danger. Wina tries to escape from Tiona Hiryute, but ends up protecting a child. Because of this, Tiona decides to let her go. Bel and Haruhime find her, but Betiloga shows up to stop them. Haruhime stays behind with Isha Belka to hold him off. Welf and Makoto stay behind to fight Gareth Landrock and manage to defeat him with help from Tsubaki Colbrande of the Hephaestus Familia. Ais faces Bel and Weenie, but Bel sends Weena to safety. However, she returns to help him. Ais keeps attacking her, refusing to believe she isn't like the other monsters. But Weena proves she's not dangerous by ripping off her wings and claws. This convinces Ais to let her go and let them escape. As the Xenos flee to Knossos, Hestia finds out that the book Hermes gave them was tampered with, which led to their trapping. Then, Hermes meets up with them to talk to them. Hermes, that sneaky bastard, pulls the strings and manipulates the Xenos into attacking civilians. Of course, Bel can't let that slide and jumps in, hoping to slay the bastards and fix his damn reputation. Then, out of nowhere, Gro goes full arsehole mode and attacks Aina Tool, but Bel's not having any of it. He steps in to protect her, doing what any decent human would do. Hestia, realizing the little shit Hermes is playing them all, rushes to help, figuring out the bloody mess that's going down. Gross, not backing down, starts fighting like a madman, hoping Bel will be forced to kill him. But Bel, showing some damn sense for once, refuses. Enter Asterius, the massive minotaur. The guy's a bloody monster, and he's got a challenge for Bel. Bel, recognizing the beast from when he defeated it in a dungeon, takes the challenge head on, ready to put up a fight. Hestia takes the distraction and helps Gro and the other Xenos escape the shitstorm brewing in the streets. Bel throws everything he has into the fight with Asterius, giving the minotaur a run for his money, but in the end, Asterius wins. The massive bastard heads back toward the dungeon, promising Bel that their next battle will be even more hellish. Fels, the bloody good healer, tends to the Xenos, getting them back on their feet as they head toward the dungeon, while Asterius sets his sights on training harder to make sure he's even stronger for the next round. With everything finally calming the hell down, the Hestia Familia starts brainstorming on how to get humans and Xenos to live together in peace. Meanwhile, Bel, battered and bruised, makes up with Ais and asks her to train him for the inevitable rematch with Asterius. He's not a bloody idiot. He knows he needs to be stronger.
Bel's finally hit level 4, but he's far from stoked about it. The Xenos are still hiding like cowards, and the damn loss to Asterius still eats him up inside. He's pissed off and determined to get stronger, so he can help the Xenos get their shit together and never lose again. At the guild, things are a bit awkward. An elf and a dwarf are hitting on Aina, but she's not having any of it. She just sees them as friends. Bel gets a letter from the Hestia family about a material collection mission, and the whole damn group freaks out. They haven't gone dungeon farming in what feels like forever, and Welf's made some killer new gear for everyone because the next floors are going to be brutal. Hestia decides to team up with the gods she trusts the most. Takamikazuchi, who sends Mikoto, Miak, who sends Daphne and Cassandra, who are now part of his damn family, and Hephaestus, who'll hold down the fort while they're gone. Aisha also joins the crew. They start doling out roles, and Lilyruka, stuck at level 1, is left out of the fighting for her own safety. But they figure she can be the strategist. Turns out she's got some serious brains.
Hestia's squad is stacked. What do you think?
Lilyruka's the strategist? I didn't see that coming. Before they leave, everyone's busting their asses to get ready. Haruhime picks up new magic from a grimoire Aisha gives her. Lilyruka picks up strategies from Daphne. Welf's working on his blacksmithing. Mikoto's sharpening her martial arts with Takamikazuchi. Bel's studying the dungeon floors with Ais, who's starting to look at him in a way that's, well, definitely not bad. Hestia's grinning from ear to ear, celebrating with Hephaestus, Miak, and Takamikazuchi. Her kids are getting stronger, and it's about damn time. The day of the expedition arrives, and Cassandra stops Bel, warning him that something's gonna go to hell if they go ahead with the mission. But fuck it, they're moving forward. Welf hands Belle a new dagger made from unicorn horn, replacing the one he broke in the fight with Asterix. With their god's blessings, the dungeon crawl kicks off.
Hey guys, I know I'm interrupting the video, but I'm just here to remind you that most of you guys watching this video are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell for more updates in the future. Now let's get straight back into the video.
After a grueling and exhausting struggle in the dungeon, with Belle outshining everyone else, they finally reach floor 24. The group decides it's time to set up camp and prepare for what's next. They deliberately damage the environment to force the dungeon's regeneration, shifting focus away from spawning creatures. It hits them that Belle is leaving them all in the dust, but instead of backing off, they agree to push harder to keep up. This actually surprises Aisha, who's taken aback by how Belle's presence has inspired everyone. He's like the freaking hero of this group, driving them to aim higher. As they gear up for the next leg of their journey, Welf pulls Belle aside to explain something about Hestia's dagger. It channels magic, but it's not game-changing. The attack itself doesn't pack a huge punch, since the dagger can actually hold magic. With that out of the way, it's time to head deeper into the dungeon, and the group remains on high alert. These lower floors are uncharted territory for most of them. On the next floor, they stumble upon enormous waterfalls cascading down to floor 27. The group stays extra cautious. One wrong move and they'd be dead in an instant. They decide to stick to floor 25 for now. On the way, Lily Ruka lays out the materials they need to gather and stresses just how expensive the equipment will be. The team knows they need to earn a lot of cash to cover the costs, but before they can even catch their breath, they're ambushed by monsters leaping out of the river currents, sending everyone into battle mode. Among the chaos, they spot rare materials across the river, perfect for Lily Ruka's plans, but they're too far to reach. Mikoto and Belle, being the fastest and most agile, are sent to grab them. On their way back, they're blindsided by a monster dropping from above, and Mikoto shows off the martial arts skills she's been training with Takamikazuchi. Aisha's eyes stay locked on Belle. This is his first time in these floors, and she can't shake the worry building up in her. They soon discover that search parties have been dispatched to these floors after multiple adventurers have gone missing. As the expedition continues, they run into Luvis, the elf from the guild, who's been sent down here as part of his own search party, but the guy's in bad shape, critically wounded from being chased by a deadly creature that's still hot on his heels. Belle doesn't hesitate. He rushes to rescue Luvis, but then they realize that the creature is just as fast and strong as Belle himself. It's some kind of enhanced version of a monster, one that's gearing up for a ranged attack. The shot hits Chigusa, injuring her badly. The monster bolts after landing its strike. But it's clear now. Cassandra's prophetic visions were warning them about this exact moment. The creature seems to grow stronger by consuming other monsters' stones. Much like how casinos operate, it gradually moves toward other injured elves, attacking them without mercy. The wounds inflicted by the creature are extremely difficult, if not impossible to heal, as they leave parasitic seeds embedded within the host, slowly consuming them with their invasive roots. Belle cannot allow these adventurers to die, so he immediately asks for any possible ideas to save them. Cassandra then suggests they go outside to find someone who might be more experienced in healing, or head toward the insect clan who might possess the necessary skills. Her second idea is to destroy the attacker, as this would, in turn, eliminate the parasites within the victims. Luvis overhears Cassandra's words and, desperate as hell, begs them to just destroy him. He's convinced his buddies are still alive down there, waiting for someone to save their asses. With a panicked look, Luvis admits he was used as bait to let his friends escape. But things are about to get a whole lot worse. The creature they're chasing down isn't just some random monster. It hunts adventurers to steal their magic stones. That confirms it. This thing is strong as hell, but it's also smart as shit. It's got brains, cunning, and it's been playing them all along. Then, Luvis drops a bomb. Dormal, another adventurer from their guild, is down here too, part of a search team. That monster could come for him at any damn moment, and there's no telling when.
Of course, the monster's not just strong, but also smart.
Now, we've got a genius monster hunting us. Perfect. At this point, the group isn't wasting any more time. They're going after this freaking monster. No more sitting around, they're hunting it down. But the creature's not dumb. It's been setting them up this whole time. The path they're following, it leads them straight into its lair, surrounded by traps that could tear them apart. The dungeon's basically a damn death trap, set up by the monster to make sure they don't get any bright ideas about escaping. This hunt's gonna be way harder than they thought, and the stakes are higher than ever. They don't hesitate for long. Belle and Aisha charge ahead head toward the creature, while the rest of the group stays back to handle the regular monsters and look after the two injured adventurers. But, of course, the creature pulls a fast one. It's a trap. The monster, crafty as hell, suddenly pops up right behind their group. Bell doesn't waste a second. He knows what's up and kicks it into high gear, retreating and engaging the creature head-on. He's fast as hell, but it doesn't slow down. He slams out some fire magic, a blazing shot that looks like it's about to drop the monster for good, but the bastard escapes through the water, dragging Belle along with it. Lily's heart races as she rushes to the water's edge, ready to dive in after him. But then, they all realize jumping in would be like signing their own death warrants. They can't just blindly throw themselves into that mess. Instead, they focus on the wounded adventurers left behind by the creature. Aisha steps up, calm as hell, and takes charge. She reassures the group that Belle's strong enough to make it out. He'll be fine. They just need to focus on saving the ones who are still here. Lily, keeping her cool, suggests they wait at the floor's entrance until Aisha can get help from the surface. Everyone agrees. It's a waiting game now, and they'll hold off whatever monsters they can until backup arrives. On the way out, they run into Dormal and his crew, who've clearly been attacked by the same damn creature. They agree to team up, knowing safety in numbers is the best bet. Meanwhile, Belle's been thrown into a whole new mess. He's ambushed by the fastest damn monsters from the lower floors, things that are practically untouchable. Belle's trapped, no cover, no escape, so he faces them head-on, doing his best to survive the brutal assault. Just when it seems like he might not make it, the mermaid appears, ready to shake things up.
Of course, Belle's luck would lead him right into the fastest monsters. This is gonna be a fun ride.
Here comes the mermaid to save the day. Praising Belle for his incredible achievement, it's revealed that the figure is actually a Xenos named Marie, who is not only kind-hearted, but also surprisingly friendly. In an unexpected act of generosity, she heals Belle by offering him her blood, an elixir so rare and valuable, it could be considered a priceless remedy. But here's the twist. Marie, being part of an aquatic species, can't join the other Xenos in their nest. Her nature keeps her bound to an environment where she can't survive with them. Meanwhile, the rest of the group presses forward, exchanging crucial intel about the monster they're facing. They quickly figure out the creature's only weak spot, fire. Armed with this knowledge, they prepare for the battle ahead, equipping themselves with fire-infused magical swords to up their chances of victory. Meanwhile, Belle, determined to take down the beast himself, asks Marie to lead him to the monster. Marie, filled with hesitation and fear, initially holds back, but Belle reassures her with a promise. He'll handle the monster and ensure no more trouble will follow. Satisfied by his resolve, she agrees to guide him toward the others. As Aisha and the team find themselves at a critical junction, the realization hits them. The monster has surrounded them. With no time to waste, they dive into a fierce battle, cutting through wave after wave of creatures that close in from all sides. They push forward, relentlessly clearing paths, but no matter how many monsters they defeat, more emerge. Amid this chaos, a rare and powerful monster appears, and Mikoto wastes no time. Demonstrating a new technique, he delivers a flawless cut that instantly defeats the creature, letting them advance without missing a beat. Eventually, the group reaches a sealed-off area where a brutal fight is inevitable, but their defense doesn't hold for long as an unexpected surge of creatures floods the area, an occurrence so rare and unusual in the dungeon that it catches them completely off guard. In the chaos, Aisha makes a swift decision to unleash their most powerful asset. Haruhime steps forward, using a new spell that comes at a great cost, draining her both physically and magically. With the spell, she boosts several key individuals, depending on how many tails she can generate, strengthening Daphne, Welf, Makoto, Uka, and Aisha, who are positioned at the forefront. This shift in power completely changes the battle's dynamics, giving them a fighting chance to survive. However, the creature isn't done yet. It takes advantage of the ongoing chaos to gather the magical stones from the fallen monsters and consume them, growing stronger and evolving into something even more monstrous. Now, it faces Aisha head-on, its enhancements putting it on par with her fully powered-up form. The battle turns brutal, and Aisha is severely wounded, infected with a parasitic seed in the process. Welf, desperate, uses his enchanted flame sword, knowing that fire is the creature's weakness, but it's useless. The creature, now more resistant than ever, has also adapted, using adventurer gear that makes it even tougher and less vulnerable to fire. With their weapons and abilities nearly exhausted, the situation grows increasingly dire. Despite the odds, the injured party members rally, urging the others to escape. But Lily refuses to leave anyone behind and orders the group to keep fighting, insisting that they won't abandon anyone. At the perfect moment, Belle arrives with the Argonaut charged, sweeping away the enemies with a surge of magic that sends the creature flying. He then confronts the creature directly, engaging in a brutal, intense battle. Daphne wishes she could help, but Welf and the others warn her that they can can do nothing. This is a fight beyond their current abilities, and they'd only get in Bel's way if they tried. Bel pushes himself beyond his limits, feeling his mind and body finally in perfect harmony with the power coursing through him. His senses sharpen, and he becomes stronger and faster than ever before, gradually overcoming the creature. With each strike, he edges closer to victory, determined to finish what he started. However, the creature has the disturbing ability to regenerate. So, Bel decides that the only way to end the fight is to deliver a final, decisive attack using Haruheim's dagger, imbued with fire and the Argonaut. Calling the attack Argonaut Vesta, the creature immediately realizes that this attack could be deadly and attempts to escape, but Welf blocks its path by freezing all the water around it, trapping it. Bel launches the attack, obliterating the creature with a powerful blow and completely destroying the parasitic seeds that had been infecting Aisha. In the heart of the bustling city, a crucial meeting is held among the gods to determine the new names for the adventurers who have recently ascended in rank. Welf is given the title Ignis, a name that burns with the fury of his strength, while Bel is bestowed with Rabbitfoot, a nod to his uncanny luck and swift agility. On the 18th floor of the dungeon, Bel visits the injured adventurers, each of them slowly recovering from their harrowing wounds. As a powerful gesture of gratitude, the Hestia family gains the trust and goodwill of the elves and dwarves, their favor hard-earned and invaluable. But just when things seem to settle, a blood-curdling shock hits the 18th floor. A string of gruesome murders erupts, and the prime suspect in these chilling killings is none other than Ryu. Suspicion casts a dark shadow over her, and tension fills the air. Meanwhile, Cassandra, plagued by her disturbing visions, experiences yet another premonition, this one darker and more terrifying than before. She sees a massacre, a brutal slaughter where no one escapes, and the carnage is so inevitable that no one, not even the gods themselves, will be able to stop it. Ryu's the killer now? This is spiraling out of control fast.
Cassandra's seeing a massacre where no one survives. It's like the end is already here.
Back in the city, with Ryu now the prime suspect in the brutal murders, she's getting hunted down by adventurers like she's a damn fugitive. Her bounty's been on her head for ages, all because she killed the family who wiped out hers. Bel and the crew are putting their heads together, going over all the sketchy details that have come to light. For one, the body was stabbed to hell and back, and some people are straight up lying about knowing Ryu, even though she fought alongside a Goliath. Like, how do you not remember that? With all these red flags, they just can't buy that Ryu's the killer. So they decide to roll with the hunting squad, hoping to find her first and get to the bottom of what's really going down. Meanwhile, Cassandra's freaked out by her premonition and is dead set on stopping them from going after Ryu, but no one's having it. They're all too determined. So Cassandra figures if she can't stop them, she'll just have to follow along and change the messed up future she saw. While they're hunting, they run into all sorts of monsters, battling their way through dungeon floors. Along the way, Cassandra asks Welf to whip up a special cap for Bel. She's convinced it's the key to changing his fate, since he's the last one standing in her prophecy. They finally make it to the waterfall area when a huge explosion goes off from the 27th floor. Realizing things are getting crazy, the group splits up. One crew stays behind to guard the entrance, while the other heads out to find Ryu. Bel joins the group going in, leaving the others to hold the line. Before he dips, he tells them to check out this shady dude named Turk. He's been stirring the pot, pushing the hunt for Ryu, and Bel's got a feeling there's more to him than meets the eye. Bel and the group continue advancing, battling relentlessly through the dungeon. Bel easily sweeps through the enemies, surprising the adventurers they encounter along the way. However, as he pushes forward, he hears Marie's voice calling out and immediately rushes ahead, determined to save her from the other adventurers in pursuit. Meanwhile, Lily shares the information she's gathered about Turk, who seems to be a familiar figure among adventurers. However, despite his repeated appearances, Turk still raises many suspicions. Turk continues to incite the group as they press on, urging them to keep going and stay on the hunt for Ryu. The group reluctantly follows his lead, uncertain whether they should trust him. Bel eventually finds Marie, visibly relieved and happy to see him. She explains that a dangerous threat lurks on those floors, one that she has been trying to avoid. Upon hearing this, Bel realizes that the strange holes in the paths may be connected to the very danger Marie fears. He urgently asks her to show him where Ryu is hiding, hoping to stop whatever dangerous plan Ryu might have in motion.
Of course, Marie's the one with the answers, just when things couldn't get more complicated.
Bel's racing against time to find Ryu, and Marie's got the key to it all. Bel finally locates Ryu, who is in the middle of interrogating someone. After finishing with the unfortunate victim, Bel is shocked by her cold and calculating actions. Ryu, noticing Bel's arrival, sternly tells him not to follow her, insisting that he should leave and not involve himself in her dangerous work. Bel, ever stubborn, decides to ignore Ryu's request and follows her, determined to understand what she's truly up to. Meanwhile, Aisha is trailing behind Turk and his group, but the adventurers grow increasingly frustrated with being followed, raising more and more suspicions about their intentions. Tensions are rising, and it's clear that something is off. Eventually, Bell reunites with the group he had left behind earlier, only to find several more bodies on the ground. Among the carnage, there is a lone survivor. Bell examines the survivor, revealing a shocking truth. All the victims were part of an evil faction, and they were wanted for various crimes. Before they can process this, Jura, relentless in her pursuit of vengeance, finishes off the survivor despite the efforts of the adventurers to stop her. Her thirst for revenge seems unstoppable. It quickly becomes apparent that Ryu did not kill the man on the 18th floor as originally suspected. She was being framed by the individual pretending to be injured. Realizing this, Bell decides to take action against the man named Jura, who turns out to be a tamer. Jura has secretly brought a dangerous monster from the deeper floors into the city, fueling the chaos. Meanwhile, he sends Fells to investigate the creatures being captured by Jura. Fells uncovers a room filled with caged monsters, confirming their worst suspicions. Evil still operates in the shadows, manipulating events from behind the scenes. Aisha and the others, meanwhile, are confronted and threatened by Turk and his men, who, along with a monster from the deep floors, force them into a fight for survival. The adventurers barely escape from the mighty monster and find a safer place to regroup. Using Haruhime's magic, they enhance Uka and Welf to Aisha's combat level, enabling them to stand a fighting chance against the formidable creature. The battle is tough and filled with close calls, but the group defeats the monster together, showcasing their teamwork and resilience. However, Cassandra feels this is not the end, and her instincts prove correct. Meanwhile, Belle and Ryu are engaged in their struggle against a hazardous monster whose movements are erratic and unpredictable. Despite the challenges, Ryu reveals her plan to defeat the creature with a barrage of magic. Belle holds off the monster long enough to give her the time to prepare her spell. With a well-timed strike, Ryu finishes off the beast. As they take a moment to catch their breath, Belle and Ryu discover the true scope of Jura's plan. It was never about the murders or the chaos he's caused. It was about angering the dungeon to summon Juggernaut, the same terrifying monster that had destroyed Ryu's family years ago. Jura reveals his plan's final, shocking detail. He intends to tame Juggernaut. The Juggernaut has reawakened and starts pursuing anyone that crosses its path. The adventurers attempt to flee, but they find themselves unable to escape the inevitable fate that awaits them, senses the presence of the Juggernaut, and is filled with dread, fearing that the same terrifying events that unfolded 5 years ago with Ryu's family are about to unfold once again. As Belle and his companions attempt to escape, they unexpectedly come across Belle and Ryu, with Ryu paralyzed by overwhelming fear and trauma from her previous encounters with the Juggernaut. Belle, determined to protect them, engages in battle with the Juggernaut. However, the Juggernaut proves superior. Its speed, strength, and resistance far exceed Belle's capabilities. The beast is immune to magic and even manages to reflect Belle's magical attacks. In a moment of carelessness, Belle loses his arm to a vicious slash, and he is knocked unconscious, teetering on the edge of death. Ryu wastes no time, charging forward to tend to Belle's injuries with no one daring to stop her. In a desperate, almost frantic rush, she slashes through the remaining adventurers in her way, cutting them down without hesitation. Once she finishes healing Belle, she jumps back into the fight, giving it everything she's got to protect the others. But only Bors is left standing. Her efforts, though heroic, aren't enough, and soon she's struck down, badly wounded. Amid the chaos, it becomes painfully clear Ryu was the same adventurer who fought alongside Goliath on the front lines, her reputation now hanging in the balance. Mary eventually finds Belle near the lake, where the intense battle with the Juggernaut had unfolded. She retrieves his severed arm and dagger, using her blood to heal him, bringing him back from the edge of death. As Belle stirs back to life, he doesn't waste a second, grabbing his Hesta dagger and the cape Welf had gifted him, using it as a shield. Despite his exhaustion, he fights valiantly, but his only option is close combat. With determination, Belle devises a risky plan. He channels magic toward the Juggernaut, hoping to have it reflected back at him, recharging his dagger with Argonaut's power and using Vesta to fuel the magic. But the Juggernaut doesn't fall, and Belle, drained and battered, finds himself on the verge of collapse. Just as it seems all hope is lost, Jura steps in, attempting to tame the Juggernaut, but his efforts are futile. The beast effortlessly slices him in half. Still, Jura orders an attack, and the monster they thought they defeated reappears, attacking them once again and swallowing them whole. Miraculously, they survive. Swallowed by the creature, though gravely injured, the two of them find themselves on the 37th floor, a place where even the most seasoned adventurers struggle to survive. And to make things worse, the Juggernaut is still on their tail. The rest of the group wants to rush to Belle's aid, but Cassandra stops them, knowing that there interference would only lead to disaster. Then, out of nowhere, the boss floor materializes, forcing everyone to retreat. But in the chaos that follows, they're caught in the whirlwind of events, trapped by the madness that has engulfed the floor's emergence. With no way out, they have no choice but to brace themselves for the battle that's sure to come.
Just when they're about to help, the boss floor appears and throws everything into chaos.
Trapped and out of options, now it's time to face the storm.
Bell sat there, beaten to hell and barely holding on, deep in the dungeon's most terrifying floors. His body ached and blood smeared his armor. Ryu lay across his lap, her injuries so severe it was a miracle she was still breathing. Bell couldn't shake the memory of Aphrodite's warning about these floors, the suffocating dread, the sheer terror. It was all true, and the growls of approaching monsters only made it worse. Bell's holding it together, but the dungeon's about to eat him alive.
Bell's about to lose his grip on reality. I can't see him die so early.
Elsewhere in the dungeon, Bell's group faced their own nightmare. A colossal, two-headed dragon erupted from the river, its presence as overwhelming as its fire. One of its heads spewed flames so hot it felt like the air itself was trying to choke them, searing their throats with each breath. They knew they couldn't take on this monster, so they made the only call that made sense. They ran, but as they fled, massive shards of ice started crashing down from above, turning their escape into chaos. The dragon roared, a deafening, gut-wrenching sound that seemed to shake the entire dungeon. Haruhime stumbled and fell, but Uka, quick on his feet, raised his shield just in time to protect her from the dragon's fiery wrath. The group barely managed to stay alive, every second a battle against panic and disaster. Meanwhile, in the depths of the guild, Uranos and Fels analyzed the dungeon's strange behavior. The dungeon had broken its usual cycle, releasing the monster Rex early, an unprecedented move. To make matters worse, the Juggernaut, a beast infamous for its bloodlust, had also started moving. It wasn't supposed to leave its original floor, yet now it was heading straight for the deep floors. Back to Bell, he feels scared and helpless. His body is badly hurt, and he knows he isn't strong enough to fight the monsters. He tries to stand, deciding to find a way out, but carrying Ryu makes it harder for him to move. The darkness of the deep floors feels overwhelming, and Bell starts to understand why people fear this part of the dungeon. It crushes their hope and courage. Meanwhile, the Hestia Familia faces their own danger. The dragon's roar has blocked their escape route, trapping them in a place called the Cage of Despair. Some of the group starts to lose hope, thinking they will die here. But Aisha refuses to give up. She encourages them to keep fighting, even though she knows they feel scared and hopeless. The dragon attacks again, and Aisha uses her sword to block its fiery breath, protecting her teammates. She looks at them and realizes they have no strength left to fight. She thinks about Bell, but quickly decides they don't need him to win. Just then, Welf steps forward, full of determination. He tells everyone they must fight, not just for survival, but to prove they can handle this without Bell. His words inspire the group, and they prepare to face the dragon together. Welf starts by freezing the river to stop the dragon from moving. Aisha takes this chance to run across the frozen river and get closer to the dragon, but the dragon fights back, forcing her to dodge its attacks. She tries to use magic, but the dragon blocks it. Realizing magic won't work, Aisha decides to attack up close instead. Haruhime supports the team by casting her level boost spell, making everyone stronger. Chigusa helps by giving supplies and healing items. Daphne activates her armor and charges at the dragon. As the fight continues, the scene shifts back to Bell, who faces another monster. Despite his injuries, Bell tries his best to protect himself and Ryu. Back at the battle, Lily feels useless because she can't fight like the others. But Daphne encourages her, and Lily starts to think clearly. She takes charge, giving instructions to the group. She tells Makoto to use her skill and positions everyone for their next attack. Makoto uses her ability, which stuns the dragon for a moment. The others take this chance to strike the dragon with their swords. Cassandra focuses on healing the injured while the rest attack with all their strength. The group fights together with great effort. Their teamwork and determination help them weaken the dragon. Even though the battle is hard, they refuse to give up. They want to prove they are strong and capable, even without Bell leading them. Bell bolts through the dungeon like hell's right on his heels, clutching Ryu, who's looking half dead in his arms. The monster behind them roars like it owns the place, and Bell knows he's running on borrowed time. With a burst of desperation, he blasts a firebolt at the beast. By some miracle, it works, and the monster drops, giving him and Ryu a second to breathe. Ryu stirs, barely hanging on, and Bell pushes her to heal herself. But nope, she's got other ideas. She burns her last magic on him instead. Bell feels his wounds knit together and freezes, dumbstruck. She's pale as a ghost, muttering that this was her last shot and that she's too far gone to help, basically telling him to ditch her and save his own skin. Bell isn't having it. Leaving her isn't an option. They're either getting out of here together or not at all. As he's trying to pep her up, a giant skull sheep strolls into the scene like it's the boss of the floor. This thing's nightmare fuel, and Bell's heart sinks. The sheep locks its hollow eyes on him, and out of nowhere, bolts forward like a damn rocket. Bell barely dodges. Ryu groans that the thing's skin camo makes it nearly invisible. The monster pounces again, sinking its teeth into Bell's arm. Pain explodes, but he's not going down that easy. He grabs his dagger and starts stabbing like his life depends on it, because it does. Blood sprays, Twice, the sheep thrashes, but Bell doesn't let go. After what feels like forever, the skull sheep finally disintegrates into the air, leaving Bell kneeling in a puddle of his own sweat and blood. His arms wrecked, he's exhausted, but they're still alive. That's gotta count for something. Although the danger is over, Bell looks at Ryu and sees she still feels like a burden. He reassures her, saying he cannot survive the deep floors without her. His words motivate her slightly, and she suggests they find a safe spot to rest for a while. Meanwhile, under Lily's leadership, the rest of the team is doing their best to fight against the dragon and other monsters. The dragon appears exhausted, breathing heavily. Everyone feels hopeful that luck is on their side. They believe they can defeat the monster with just a few more strikes, but before they can make their final move, the dragon dives into the water. From there, it climbs up a waterfall, then leaps back into the river, creating a massive wave that crashes into the adventurers. The powerful wave causes them to lose their balance. Mikoto is swept into the deep water, and small monsters begin to attack her. Back with Bell and Ryu, Bell carries her as they continue moving forward. They come across a fork in the path. Following Ryu's earlier advice, Bell chooses the narrower path. Along the way, they see light glowing from a magic stone and feel hopeful. They think other adventurers might be nearby, and for a moment they believe they are not alone. However, their happiness quickly turns to fear when they find skeletons of adventurers scattered around the area. Before they can react, another skull sheep appears behind them. Bell quickly uses his firebolt again and successfully defeats it. But Bell is not feeling well. He is losing hope, overwhelmed by exhaustion and fear. This time, Ryu encourages him. She tells him to rest for 5 minutes, saying it's the only safe amount of time they can afford in a dangerous place like this. Bell reluctantly agrees and falls asleep, while Ryu silently cries as she watches over him. Bell's out, but Ryu's out here holding it down like a champ.
She's watching over him. She is the walking ad of women independence.
Back with the team, everyone climbs out of the water, only to realize that Mikoto is missing. They begin searching for her, but the dragon suddenly re-emerges from the water. It attacks the group with its fiery breath. Haruhime and Lily steps in to protect Cassandra, saving them from harm. Having lost both Haruhime and Mikoto, the team becomes more enraged. They channel their anger into determination, eager to defeat the dragon no matter what. Ryu's keeping watch while Belle's knocked out, her body aching but her senses on high alert. Her eyes flick to the crumbling walls around them, nerves buzzing. The dungeon's a damn nightmare, and she knows they're both too messed up to survive another round. But of course, luck's a joke, and before she knows it, 3 skull sheep step out of the shadows, their glowing eyes locked on her like they've been hunting her all night. Fear claws at her insides, but she forces herself to stand, her legs shaking like jelly. These monsters don't waste time, moving in slow but deadly like they know she's running on fumes. Armed with nothing but a tiny dagger, she gets ready to face the storm. The first sheep charges and she sinks her blade into it with everything she's got. The damn thing drops, disappearing like a puff of smoke. But the other 2, they're not having it. They rush at her, teeth bared, and she's barely keeping up. One slams into her, knocking her down hard. The other's ready to rip her apart, jaws wide open. Her heart's hammering as she freezes, thinking this is the end. Then, out of nowhere, the beast above her drops like a sack of bricks. She blinks, confused as hell, and spots a dagger stuck in its side. She looks up and sees Belle, barely awake but still standing, eyes blazing with that same stubborn fire. Belle pulls her up, shoving a fresh dagger into her hand. He gives her the silent order to rest, like he doesn't give her any choice. Exhaustion crashes into her and she lies down, her mind drifting back to 5 years ago, lost in memories, even with the monster still lurking around. Meanwhile, back with the team, they are still fighting the dragon. After losing both Haruhime and Mikoto earlier, the group is determined to defeat the monster. Aoka realizes that they need a solid surface to stand on if they want to fight effectively. The dragon continues its attacks, diving underwater again and causing massive waves that crash into the adventurers. One wave hits Uka particularly hard, but he manages to stay safe. Recognizing the need for teamwork, Uka calls out to Welf for help. Welf uses his ability to create a giant ice walkway with his sword. Uka uses this pathway to get closer to the dragon. At the same time, Mikoto, who is underwater, begins using her powers to boost the strength of the entire team. Together, Uka and Mikoto fight against the dragon and the smaller monsters that accompany it. While this is happening, Aisha notices Haruhime emerging from the smoke, using her own abilities to support the team. With the combined efforts of Uka, Mikoto, Haruhime, and Aisha, they finally defeat the dragon. Relief washes over the group as they celebrate their victory. However, their joy is short-lived as the tunnel around them begins to collapse. Realizing the danger, they decide to flee immediately. The group plans to head toward Tunnel 24, but some members insist on going to Tunnel 26 to find Belle. A tense moment follows as they debate their next move. Cassandra steps up, taking charge and pushing Daphne to trust her gut. She's confident, saying they should head east toward Tunnel 26. Daphne hesitates at first, but eventually she gives in, and the whole group takes off running, heading straight for the tunnel. Just as they enter, the cage of despair comes crashing down, completely blocking off their old spot. The adventurers freeze for a moment, then let out a collective sigh of relief. Cassandra's call was spot on, and they've just avoided a serious mess. Meanwhile, Belle's on guard, keeping a close eye on Ryu as she rests. Even though they were both wrecked, with injuries all over, Belle's not letting his guard down. He's dead set on protecting her and finding a way out of the deep floors together, no matter what. One day, they start clowning around, teasing her that she's gotten so lazy, she could literally fall asleep while standing. Lyra, with a sly grin, throws out that maybe Ryu's just got a crush on someone. The group cracks up, everyone enjoying enjoying the chill moment, just vibing and being goofy. But then, things take a turn. Elise, usually the calm one, suddenly stands up with a serious look on her face. She's got some heavy news. She drops that she's gotten word that from the guild about the Rudra fam. Apparently, they've taken a nasty hit, and it looks like they're trying to regroup and stir up trouble in the lower floors of the dungeon. The room goes quiet real quick as everyone feels the shift in energy. Elise isn't one to sit back and let danger slide, so she's all in, saying they need to hit those lower floors hard. They can't just let the Rudra family scheme in peace. If they can mess up their plans or even grab them, it's gonna be a massive win for the Astria fam, something they can all pop bottles to. As they get ready to head into the dungeon, Ryu seems a little off. She hesitates, a weird feeling creeping in. Normally, she'd be all about charging ahead, but today, something feels wrong. She's not sure she's fully down for the chaos waiting below. The day everything's about to flip for Ryu and her crew is here, and the weight of it all is starting to hit her. Back in the present, Belle is watching over Ryu as she sleeps. He notices her mumbling in her sleep, likely caught in the memories of her past. Belle realizes this is the first time he has seen Ryu completely let her guard down. While keeping watch, Belle suddenly notices a skull sheep staring at them from the darkness. Belle begins to think about how he can fight the monster without waking Ryu, who desperately needs rest. He prepares to activate his power, but before he can attack, the skull sheep retreats. Relieved, Belle is glad he has bought Ryu more time to recover. Meanwhile, the team is making their way through the 26th tunnel, fighting off countless monsters along the way. To their shock, they encounter monsters from the 27th level, even though they are still on the 26th. The dungeon seems to be toying with them, and they know they cannot retreat until the dungeon repairs itself. After a grueling battle, the group continues moving toward the source of some mysterious sounds. Eventually, they come across Boars, who delivers devastating news. He claims that Belle is dead. According to him, when the monster attacked, Belle couldn't have survived. The group is heartbroken, struggling to process the loss of their friend. As they mourn, they suddenly hear growling noises from nearby. Monsters are heading their way. The team begins to run, but they realize the monsters are approaching from all directions. They manage to escape for now, but they soon find themselves trapped in a dead end. Aisha's absolutely fuming, calling out Boars about Belle and not letting up for a second. As they go back and forth, the crew starts to feel a tiny flicker of hope. Maybe Belle's not dead after all. That little bit of hope lights a fire under them, and now they're all in. They're charging into the deep floors. No hesitation, no second guessing. But before they push forward, they know they need a damn break. Everyone's wrecked from the constant grind. Aisha and Boars are the ones to step up, volunteering to stand guard while the others crash and try to get some sleep. While the crew's resting, Welf's brain's working overtime. He remembers what Hephaestos told him. With the right materials and a solid flame, he can forge weapons anywhere. That shit snaps into place, and he comes up with a plan. He tells the crew he can make some solid weapons for their battles, but there's a catch. While he's forging, he's sitting duck, can't move, can't fight back. It's a huge risk, but he's willing to put it all on the line. He tells them straight up that they better have his back while he works, no matter what, even if it means risking their own lives. The crew's pretty damn impressed, but they know they need those weapons if they're gonna stand a chance. They're all in, agreeing to protect Welf while he crafts what they need. Spirits are up, and with a solid plan, they're ready to walk right into whatever hell the dungeon throws at them. They're coming for Belle, and they're not stopping until they find him. These guys are pumped. I can see the fire in their eyes.
They've got a plan now? Let's see if the dungeon can handle it.
Ryu is dreaming of a day when Alice and the others are discussing the meaning of justice. By the end of the conversation, Alice declares that their family needs to follow fake justice to create harmony and peace among themselves. When Ryu wakes up, she partially heals her injured leg. She stands on her feet while Belle does his best to encourage her and boost her confidence. Feeling more determined, Ryu begins to assess their situation. She concludes that they are on the 37th floor in the White Palace. However, she cannot figure out their exact location or which direction they should go. They are low on equipment and strength, and facing monsters would leave them with very little chance of survival. Belle asks if it might be better to stay where they are and wait for someone to rescue them. Ryu, however, has little hope. She explains that they are in a part of the dungeon that is hard to find, especially during expeditions to the deep floors. She knows that escaping this place is extremely difficult, but if they don't try, they will eventually end up like the corpses scattered around them. On the 26th floor, Welf is busy forging a weapon using materials he found in the dungeon. Meanwhile, the rest of the team fights off a horde of monsters, doing everything they can to protect Welf. He is struggling to craft a sword out of adamantite, which makes the task even harder. Ryu suggests they move toward a tunnel that leads to the 36th floor. She explains that they can survive there because of the available food, water, berries, and nuts. Although the journey will be dangerous, it's their best chance. She also tells Belle they need to gather equipment, water, and other items from the corpses. At first, Belle hesitates, but when he sees Ryu doing it to survive, he follows her lead. He promises himself that he will make it back to the surface. While searching the bodies, they find an incomplete map with details about the surrounding areas. Ryu, who has been to the deep floors many times, remembers the normal routes. Using the map, she devises a plan to guide them back to the dungeon's main path and toward a connecting tunnel. They pack everything they need and begin their journey back to the surface. Meanwhile, the team on the 26th floor continues to fight off the beasts, protecting Welf as he works. Welf is feeling hopeless because he's struggling to forge the sword. His inner voice begins to question him, asking why he is trying to craft a weapon in the middle of a dungeon. Welf suddenly remembers his purpose. It's for Belle and his friends. This realization gives him new strength strength, and he pours all his energy into forging the sword. In another part of the city, Hephaestus learns that Tsubaki has entered the dungeon after being approached by Naza and Miak. Hestia then asks Hephaestus if they can skip Belle's knife payment for the month since dungeon expeditions are expensive. Hephaestus refuses, saying she has no doubt that the knife has saved Belle's life many times by now. At the same time, Belle is shown fighting a skull sheep using that very knife. Back on the 26th floor, Welf is focused on crafting a sword with divine powers. Determined to finish it, he works tirelessly. Suddenly, the beasts break through the shields of Uka and Boris, entering the space where Welf is working. The team panics, but to their surprise, a massive blast of fire erupts, burning the monsters. When the smoke clears, they see Welf standing tall, holding the newly forged sword. Welf calls for Cassandra's help, and she agrees. Together, they combine their abilities to create a giant flame attack that burns all the remaining beasts. The team is amazed by the power of the sword Welf has crafted. Belle's fighting his ass off against a bunch of wolf-like monsters while trying to keep Ryu safe. The monsters keep coming in waves, and Belle's lost count of how many he's taken down. Just when he thinks he's finished, another damn horde shows up. He almost gets taken out by one of the beasts, but Ryu saves him last second with her dagger. Belle scrambles back to her, asking what they should do next. Ryu pulls out a stone and tosses it toward the monsters. Belle lights it up, and boom, the explosion fries the rest of the beasts. The stone, called Blaze Stone, was something Ryu swiped from a dwarf. After the fight's over, Ryu sits down to update their map while Belle keeps watch. Belle's feeling like a damn burden, realizing it's always Ryu saving his skin. Ryu notices his struggle and starts laying it out for him. She tells him how to fight smarter and use his surroundings to his advantage. Belle admits he freaks out during fights, but Ryu tells him it's normal for anyone stepping into the deep floors for the first time. Belle gets a little more confidence after hearing her words. Meanwhile, the crew hits the 37th floor and runs into some monsters. Welf steps up, slashing through them with his freshly forged sword. The group's shocked at how much stronger the sword gets with every monster it takes down. Ryu explains to Belle that the 37th floor is split into 5 circular areas. The path to the 38th floor is in the middle, and the exit to the 36th floor is in the outer ring. She then hands Belle a potion with mold in it. Belle hesitates but drinks it, feeling the pain fade away. He tells Ryu he's ready to keep going. They move forward, but another wave of monsters shows up. Ryu says they should retreat, but Belle's not backing down. He charges in to fight. Meanwhile, Tsubaki and her crew are dealing with their own monsters. After taking them down, one of her team members senses something massive and terrifying nearby. Back with Belle and Ryu keeps warning Belle about the dangers of the 39th floor monsters as they walk. They run into an ooze, a nasty creature that spits out acidic toxins. Ryu makes Belle drink the antidote and says she'll take the other half, but instead, she stashes it for later. The team reaches the area where the search party had previously fought a monster. Lily asks Boris to take them to the spot where he last saw Belle. As they move forward, Aisha hears an eerie echo warning them not to proceed. Ryu and Belle make their way to the 3rd ring of the floor's inner area. Meanwhile, Lily notices a large hole and speculates that Belle might have fallen into it. As the team debates their next move, monsters appear, forcing them to fight once again. Tsubaki's group arrives on the 27th floor, calling for Ryu. They are shocked to see bloodstains on the ground. As they battle beasts, the team begins to lose strength and faces near defeat. However, the Xenos arrive to help, bringing other monsters to fight alongside them. The group is confused but relieved as they witness the monsters fighting each other. As Belle and Ryu continue their journey, Ryu reflects on her role in helping Belle grow. She wonders how much she can guide and protect him before her time runs out. She considers the harsh reality of their situation, knowing the deep floors are unforgiving and that sacrifices may be necessary. Ryu recalls her younger self, filled with ideals and determination, and compares it to Belle's current resolve. She remembers her friend Kaguya and silently acknowledges that she now shares Kaguya's perspective.
The monsters are dropping one by one, and Lily's feeling all kinds of hype, trying to sell the idea that this is the work of Mother Nature's blessing. Then, bam, Tsubaki and her crew roll in. Lily's totally shocked and psyched, thinking it means Hestia sent them to help. She rushes over, ready to ask for help with the monsters. The crew's in, and they're chopping down beasts with their unique skills like it's nothing. Welf is sitting on the ground, exhausted. When he catches a vibe, a monster's coming straight at him, but before he can even blink, Tsubaki takes it down with ease. Both of them freeze for a second, staring at each other, surprised to see the other here. Tsubaki spots Welf's sword and gives him props, calling him out for aiming for greatness. She teases him, saying, "Welcome to hell," before jumping back into the fight. Meanwhile, Rito's locked in battle with monsters when he hears voices. Turning around, he spots Marie, who quickly lets him know that Belle's in deep trouble and has gone even further into the dungeon. Rito's head spinning, but he doesn't waste a second. He starts shouting at the crew, raising the alarm. They waste no time and decide they're heading down to rescue Belle. Lily hears about the situation and that Belle and Ryu have gone deep into the dungeon, and her heart drops. She's scared as hell, but Rito offers to let her join the rescue. She talks it over with Anya about their ranks, and then she updates the group on where to find Ryu and Belle. Daphne doesn't like the idea, but the team agrees to dive deeper into the dungeon to save them. Meanwhile, Belle's out there, handling a horde of monsters. His new tactics, taught by Ryu and Ice, are actually working. He's staying calm, taking down the beasts with better efficiency. Ryu's watching him closely, impressed by how fast he's improving. But while she's distracted, a group of monsters sneaks up behind her. Belle's about to lose it, but Ryu tells him to keep his head in the fight in front of him. She takes care of the monsters behind her, pulling out Kaguya's techniques like a pro. Just when things seem to settle, the wall behind them crashes down and a horde of barbarians appears. Ryu's almost overwhelmed, but Belle charges in, saving her. She ends up saving his ass right back, keeping them both alive. Elsewhere, the Juggernaut is seen feasting on Skull's sheep. Back with Ryu and Belle, they are surrounded by various types of monsters. A creature with a poisonous needle attacks, killing several skeleton beasts. Ryu uses a blaze stone to eliminate nearby monsters, but Belle gets stabbed by the poisonous needle. He pulls the needle out and uses his dagger to neutralize the toxin. Ryu is astonished by his quick thinking and determination.
Poisoned and still doesn't miss a beat. Belle's a walking tank.
Can't agree more? Belle is the real deal here. Later, Ryu gives Belle their last healing potion. While Belle rests, Ryu studies the map to figure out a way out of their situation. She considers taking the path that earlier adventurers had used, but wonders what forced them to abandon it. Despite her doubts, she decides to follow that path. As they move forward, Ryu realizes where they are. She explains to Belle that once they pass the area beyond the stairs, they'll finally reach the normal route that leads outside. Belle is overjoyed, but his happiness quickly turns to dread when he sees the area Ryu mentioned. It's a coliseum. The coliseum is a place where monsters just don't stop. One goes down and another pops up in its place. Endless chaos. It's like the dungeon got squeezed into a tiny arena, and even the Loki Familia knows to steer clear of this nightmare. For Ryu and Belle, though, there's no choice but to cross it. If they can get to the other side, they'll hit the normal route and it should be smooth sailing to the 36th floor, but if they try to dodge it, getting off this floor will be a whole different kind of hell. Belle's quick to catch on to the situation. Ryu explains they're directly opposite the passage leading to the normal route. To make it through the Coliseum without being ripped to pieces, they'll have to blend in with the monsters and keep under the radar. Their plan? Hide under the scent and skin of Skull sheep. Belle can't help but throw some praise Ryu's way for coming up with such a clever idea. Ryu, in turn, gives him some advice. Turn his knowledge into wisdom so he can start helping others out, which is what'll make him a real adventurer one day. Then she asks Belle if he remembers the layout of the normal route. Belle shares what he knows, and Ryu hands him a blaze stone, telling him they'll need it in case things get real ugly. A little while later, they're both walking through the Coliseum, camouflaged under the skull sheep hide. They move slowly and cautiously, making sure not to draw any attention. The place is crawling with monsters battling each other for no reason. Ryu points out a bridge ahead, which is the only way to reach the normal route. But right as they start moving, a massive monster steps right in their way. Luckily, another monster draws its attention, giving them the chance to slip by. As they walk, Belle starts thinking, why does this place even exist in the dungeon? Is it a test for adventurers? Or maybe for the monsters themselves? Then, out of nowhere, a monster grabs Belle by the leg, blowing their cover. Ryu's sharp though, and quickly reacts, but they're instantly surrounded by a swarm of monsters, trapped and running out of options. Together, Belle and Ryu fight back, using Firebolt and Blaze-stones to kill the enemies. Although more monsters keep appearing, they manage to push through and reach the bridge's exit. Ryu decides to stay behind and handle the monsters chasing them. She orders Belle to clear the way ahead. Belle follows her orders, but as he looks back, he sees Ryu surrounded by a glowing, luminous wind. Using the wind, Ryu throws Belle to safety near the exit. At that moment, the bridge collapses, leaving them on opposite sides. Belle yells at Ryu, asking why she is doing this and if it's to save him, but Ryu doesn't respond. Instead, she turns away and begins to leave. Furious, Belle starts running back. Meanwhile, Ryu stands her ground to face the monsters. She resolves not to be a burden to Belle anymore. Even though she knows she might not survive, she refuses to go down without a fight. She attacks the monsters, but after a while, her dagger breaks. Exhausted and weaponless, she falls to the ground, accepting her fate.
Monsters thought they'd get an easy win. Ryu's got other plans.
Belle's coming back, but Ryu's still holding the line like a boss. Just as the monsters close in, a fiery explosion is seen. Belle has returned to save her. Ryu is shocked, realizing Belle went through the maze to protect her. She calls him a fool and urges him to leave and survive, but Belle refuses, using every ounce of his strength to fight off the monsters. Slowly, he makes his way toward Ryu, determined to save her no matter what. Back in the past, when everything turned to shit, the Astria family is crawling out of the wreckage after a massive bomb blast. They're lucky to be alive, but the world's falling apart. Then, like a nightmare, the sky rips open and the Juggernaut drops in like it owns the place. The monster starts chomping down on Nguyen and another poor soul, and the whole damn group freezes, watching their family get devoured. Ryu's fucking livid. She rushes in, ready to take that beast down, but the Juggernaut just tosses her like she's a rag doll. It's about to finish her off, but Kaguya, that badass, jumps in in and takes the hit. The Juggernaut slashes her, and Ryu just stands there, watching in horror as Kaguya's arm gets cut clean off. The others try to fight back, but the beast just keeps getting stronger and stronger, like it's feeding off their fear. One by one, they fall like flies. Only Alice, Ryu, Lyra, and Kaguya are left, but Alice is barely hanging on, blood everywhere. She grabs Ryu and tells her to live, that Ryu's the fucking embodiment of justice, always doing what's right, and that justice will go through her now. Alice, like the captain she is, decides to sacrifice herself, along with Lyra and Kaguya, just to give Ryu a fighting chance. Before she dies, Alice tells Ryu to use her damn magic to take the Juggernaut down. The three of them fight to the bitter end, but they go down one by one. Ryu's heart's shattered, but she's not giving up. She taps into that luminous wind magic of hers and throws everything she has at the Juggernaut. But the fucker just escapes, slipping away like a coward. Ryu's devastated, heartbroken, but she runs off swearing to herself. She's so fucking full of shame, she can't even bring herself to face Lady Astrea. She feels unworthy as hell, thinking she failed everyone. Days pass. After she gets patched up, Ryu drags herself back to the 30th floor to bury her fallen friends. But when she gets there, it's worse than she could ever imagine. The monsters have already devoured them, leaving nothing but bones. The sight breaks her even more, filling her with nothing but fucking hate for everyone. She's done. She's lost. Ryu asks Lady Astrea to leave Orario, but Lady Astrea suggests she let go of her sense of justice. This breaks Ryu further. Consumed by rage, Ryu embarks on a path of vengeance. She destroys everything tied to the Rudra family and Evolus, including people, buildings, and command posts. Her rampage earns her the title Gale Wind. She even kills Jura, stabbing him repeatedly with her blade. Despite her vengeance, Ryu feels empty. She wishes to die, overwhelmed by guilt and despair. She wonders why she was left alive when her friends sacrificed themselves for her. Should she live to honor their sacrifice, or die as punishment for her actions? During this dark time, Sir rescues her. Ryu dreams of her friends from the Astrea family walking away, leaving her behind. She begs them not to abandon her. Now, back to present. The scene shifts to Belle dragging Ryu out of the rubble. The explosion in the Colosseum destroyed the floor, causing them to fall into a passageway hidden below. Belle carries Ryu on his back as they move forward. Ryu keeps telling Belle to leave her behind and let her die, but Belle refuses. Belle tells her that, in his eyes, she has always been a hero. He admires her for saving so many adventurers, and calls her a righteous champion of justice. Hearing this, Ryu starts to cry. Suddenly, a barbarian appears and attacks. Ryu falls to the ground as the monster targets Belle, knocking him unconscious. Ryu desperately tries to wake him up. Just as the barbarian is about to devour him, Belle regains consciousness and kills it.
Thought the barbarian had a snack, but Belle's not on the menu.
Ryu's got that saving grace, but Belle's got the killing blow. Later, as they continue their journey, they come across a river. They decide to rest. At that time, Belle gets unconscious and falls in the water. Ryu heals Belle's injuries, helps him drink the river water, and drinks some herself.
Hey guys, I know I'm interrupting the video, but I'm just here to remind you that most of you guys watching this video are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell for more updates in the future. Now let's get straight back into the video.
After some time, Ryu feels guilty for making Belle use his magic stones to start a fire. Belle reassures her, saying he doesn't sense any monsters nearby and figures they're safe in this room. He then apologizes for getting her wet when he passed out in the river earlier. Ryu explains they need to strip off their wet clothes to keep from freezing. It's awkward as hell, but they try to stay warm. Ryu asks Belle why he came back to save her, and he simply answers that he wanted to. No grand reason, just a gut feeling. Ryu then tells Belle the story of that horrible day when her family sacrificed themselves to protect her. Belle listens quietly, picking up on her pain, and does his best to cheer her up. But as the cold sinks in, Ryu suggests they share body heat to survive. At first, she hesitates, but then Belle wraps his arms around her. They huddle close, both covered by a single robe, trying to get through the cold together. After a while, they get dressed and decide to move on. There's nothing left to stay for. As they walk, the place feels off. No monsters, just these weird flowers growing all over the place. Ryu keeps track of every detail in her map. They come to a dead end, but after checking out the rocks, they realize something's up. They break through them and find a hidden passage, leading them to the 37th floor. Relieved, they start thinking they're close to safety, but the moment they step into the passage, they feel it. The presence of something big. They turn the corner, and there it is. The Juggernaut. And it's worse than before. The damn thing's absorbed other monsters and fused them into its body. It's slower, but now it's got all these new attacks that make it even more deadly. Belle charges at it, doing everything he can to hold it back, but then it turns its attention to Ryu, and Belle knows things are about to get a whole lot messier. As the Juggernaut prepares to attack her with a powerful move it copied from a floor boss, Belle intervenes, pushing her out of harm's way. In doing so, he gets severely injured. Determined to keep fighting, Bell uses Firebolt to close his wound, but he loses a significant amount of blood and collapses, unconscious. Ryu manages to support him as the Juggernaut attacks at them again. In a desperate move, she squeezes herself and Bell into a narrow gap between two large rocks, successfully evading the monster's attacks. After several failed attempts to reach them, the Juggernaut eventually decides to leave. Exhausted and injured, Ryu feels hopeless and believes their time has come. She lies on the ground, cradling Bell. When he regains consciousness, she tells him to hug her one last time. Bell, still weak, does as she asks, holding her close. Ryu closes her eyes as Bell gently suggests she rest. Once Ryu falls asleep, Bell gathers every ounce of strength left in his body. Determined to protect her and put an end to the danger, he stands up and prepares to face the Juggernaut one final time. Ryu dreams of returning to her family. As she gets closer to them, Alice and the others appear. They ask her to reconsider her decision. Alice warns her that she will regret it later. However, Ryu insists that she wants to give up. She believes she deserves to be blamed, cursed, and judged by her family for everything that happened. Alice gently assures Ryu that they sacrificed themselves to protect her because they believed in her. They knew she would save many lives, bring smiles to countless faces, and always do the right thing. Encouraged by their words, Ryu begins to cry. She realizes she doesn't want to give up. She wants to save Bell. With newfound determination, she composes herself, grabs her weapon, and heads out to fight the Juggernaut. Meanwhile, Bell is already locked in battle with the Juggernaut. Ryu joins him, and together they face the monster. The Juggernaut unleashes a devastating attack that throws them off balance, but Ryu refuses to back down. Gathering all her strength and courage, she stands up to fight. In her mind, she imagines her family standing by her side, guiding and motivating her as she continues to attack the Juggernaut relentlessly.
This monster's getting rocked harder than its armor.
Guys, look at Ryu. She's fighting like she's got a whole army behind her. In a final, powerful move, Ryu strikes the beast, reducing it to mere dust that falls gently to the ground like snow. Bell is left breathing heavily, and Ryu collapses from exhaustion. Both are severely injured. Not long after, Rito and his team find them. They administer healing potions to Bell and Ryu. Hearing Lily and the others approaching, Rito and his group decide to leave quietly. Moments later, Lily and the rest of the team finally reunite with Bell and Ryu. 3 days later, Ryu wakes up in a hospital bed. Concerned about Bell, she rushes to his room. However, in her hurry, she doesn't realize that her gown is too short and ends up opening slightly as she enters. Everyone in the room, including Bell, is shocked and embarrassed. The other women slap Bell, and Ryu sinks to the floor in shame. Later, Bell reflects on how it was Ryu's strength and determination that brought them out of the dungeon alive. On the other hand, Ryu credits Bell for giving her the courage to keep going, saying she wouldn't have survived without his support. Welf shares news that has been spreading, rumors of Gale Wynn's supposed demise. Some days later, Ryu is seen sitting on a hospital bench. Bell joins her, commenting on how lucky it is that they're both being discharged on the same day. Ryu is wearing a beautiful dress, and Bell compliments her, making her blush. They decide to go for a walk together. Ryu takes Bell to a special place she used to visit with Alice. She opens up about the time Lady Estrella advised her to give up on seeking justice. At the time, Ryu felt rejected, but now she understands that Lady Estrella's words were meant to protect her. She realizes that pursuing justice her own way allowed her to keep moving forward. Ryu expresses her gratitude to Bell, saying it was his belief in her that helped her stand tall again. To her, Bell is a human being worthy of respect. She says all this with a genuine smile on her face. Bell, captivated by her smile, tells her she looks even more beautiful when she smiles wholeheartedly. Embarrassed, Ryu becomes too shy to respond. Instead, she quickly excuses herself, leaving Bell confused and wondering what just happened.
And that was the ending. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you guys in the next one.
See you next time!